meeting to order. With me is Councilor President McGee, a member of the committee, Councilor McGivern, Councilor at Large, member of the committee. Also with us are Councilor LeBron Martinez from Ward 1, Councilor Hernandez from Ward 4, Councilor Tallman at Large, Councilor Graney at Large, and Councilor Vacan from Ward 5. And did I miss anybody? If I did, I apologize. I thought we were good. So if Councilor Bartley was here, he had made a request that we try to take up. He's got one item on item 8, but I don't see him, so I'm going to hold off on that. I know he just had some general comments and thought it would just be something that would be dealt with quickly. So I'll entertain a motion that we take up item 1.
Do you want to take up item 1, 2, and 3 as a package? They're all related.
That sounds good. Is there a second?
You can second it.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the first order, Gas and Electric Department requests permission to locate a line of wires, cables, poles, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way or ways. One pole on Valley Heights near 36 and 39 Valley Heights, Holyoke, Mass. Verizon will remove backyard poles after all parties, electrical and communication services are relocated to the street. Removals will occur as soon as possible. And may require permission from private landowners for temporary removal of existing structures such as fences and other obstructions in order to assess backyard poles. Item 2 from the Verizon New England Inc. and Holyoke Gas and Electric request permission to locate poles, wires, cables, and fixtures, including the necessary anchors, guys, and other such sustaining and protecting fixtures to be owned and used in common by your petitioners along and across the following public way or ways. Valley Heights Street, place 1 jointly owned pole numbered T.8-3/E.1-1N on the easterly side of Valley Heights Street at a point approximately 300 feet northerly of the center line of Lincoln Street. Valley Heights Street again, place 1 jointly owned pole number, I'm just going to not put the numbers on there if that's okay, on the easterly side of Valley Heights Street at a point approximately 450 feet northerly of the center line of Lincoln Street. Valley Heights Street, place 1 jointly owned pole on the easterly side of Valley Heights at a point approximately 610 feet northerly of the center line of Lincoln Street. Valley Heights, place 1 jointly owned pole on the easterly side of Valley Heights Street at the point 755 feet northerly from the center line of Lincoln Street. Valley Heights Street, place 1 jointly owned pole on the easterly side of Valley Heights Street at the point approximately 900 feet northerly of the center line of Lincoln Street. Valley Heights Street, place 1 jointly owned pole in the middle of the cul-de-sac at the northerly end of Valley Heights Street at a point approximately 970 feet northerly from the center line of Lincoln Street. Reason, place 6 jointly owned pole of Valley Heights Streets to provide the distribution of intelligence and telecommunications and for the transmission of high and low voltage electric current. Item 3 on the agenda is introduced by Councilor McGee, ordered that the Public Safety Committee invite Jim Lavelle and or representative of the Holyoke Gas and Electric with regard to the Valley Heights Streets project, and we had tabled that on January 27th. So Councilor McGee, if you would like to start, and then we can.
No, thank you, Councilor Murphy. This is not new. Like you said, it was back January 27th. We took this up and we got some information from the HG&E on moving poles from the back of people's houses up front, and they gave the reasons why. At that time, also, we learned that, Verizon had poles. The poles were back there, but there was no guarantee that they were going to move the poles after HG&E moved the poles out front. After talking with members of HG&E, I was given information to call the Verizon contact, which I did reach out to them and explain to our position that if poles were to be moved out front onto Valley Heights, it would make no sense to move new poles out front and leave the old poles in back for Verizon. That's not fair to the residents and homeowners in that area. From there, we ultimately got communications from Jim Lavelle as to what was going on in the pole placements. And I was in contact with Mr. Sanchez, who lives in that area, trying to get updates from the residents over there, of which he is here tonight to express their concerns with regards to what is going on. I know back in January, we were told there was 3 options. Technically leave the poles where they're at, but due to the trees and everything else, it was a hard way of trying to do the things. Move the poles out front or bury them underground. Bury them underground was not cost effective, so it left the last 2 options. And I think that's where we are now as to what is best for this area with regards to these residents. So that's the recap as I remember it. And I will stop there. I know there are residents here that would like to speak, and I'll make a motion to allow them to speak.
Motion is made and seconded.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So if we can, we'll start with the public comments. So if you would like to speak, just put your hand up. I'll try. Mr. Sanchez, I see you right away. So we're going to have you first up. Thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate your time. So let us know your concerns.
Evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, I'm a homeowner at 16 Valley Heights for 12 years now. And a couple years ago, Gas and Electric offered to put the poles in the front, and people were kind of like against it. And then 2 years from then, they've sporadically came and asked for different, to put the poles in the front. And I think Mr. Vinny O'Connell was one of the gentlemen, and someone else from GNE.
Okay.
And at first it was their petition to do it. And then since they were telling us that Verizon, the poles are getting bad in the back and they're rotted and whatnot. So that I don't know how, but somehow Verizon now has commissioned to put in the front egress of the homes. So I just wanted to let you guys know, from a concerned homeowner, I live in this beautiful cul-de-sac. You go through it, it's completely open. It's not all about aesthetics, but there's no poles there. There's nothing dangling in front across the streets or anything like that. And then from a safety standpoint, I would say, let's say if one of the houses was on fire from the roof, the poles, the side that would have the poles and the wires, you wouldn't be able to put a water tower. But either way, we work hard, work ladders, try to get the job done. As far as the information that was given to you about people that were for it and against it, and I have a little thing here that says it, I have a petition here where I have 11 homeowners that are against it. I don't know how I'd be able to get it to you guys. I could email it. I could do whatever. I have 16 Valley Heights, me, 12, 8, 4, 7, 11, 15, 19, 23, 27, 31, 32. There's a couple others that don't want the poles in the front, but they don't want to say anything about it. I don't know why.
Okay.
So my thing is the poles back there's trees in the back, and I don't know, they've never really been trimmed before or anything like that. So even if you were to take out just the poles or whatever, I think those trees are still in the way of landing on houses or whatever. And I would say if you guys were to doing something infrastructure, to do something for Holyoke, to do it the right way, putting them where they are, like you did on Taylor Street, like the pole a foot away from it and put the exact existing poles there. But they're saying that you don't have access to those locations. Wouldn't you have to get back there anyways to take those poles and lines out? I'm not an engineer, but I'm just saying that. And then now I'm begging for just the green boxes in the front, because once again, aesthetically, it's a beautiful neighborhood. I wish you guys can come through here. It's right behind Lemke's. You guys, it's a beautiful place. And I know it's going from 5,000 to 15,000. And I talked to Mr. O'Connor about it. He says that's dangerous, but I would think like trimming down those trees and putting it back there where it is existing. I would think that they would have their own, like trust in their work and to make it safe and to make it right. I mean, whoever's stuff is in the way, like certain things, I'm pretty sure the homeowners would be willing to remove whatever is in the way to have the poles in the backyard the way they are, than instead of having them in the front of their homes. And I think there's a little bit of misinformation saying that everyone agrees with it when I don't think so. And I'm just saying I'm asking you guys to look over it and check it out and maybe figure out maybe a way that we can make us all happy. We would love to have either those boxes down there, or if you guys can really show how you guys can do a great job and put the poles existing where they are and run them through where they are right now and keep this a beautiful neighborhood. And other than that, I appreciate everything you guys do, and it's pretty neat to watch you guys doing all of this. And other than that, I mean, maybe next Wednesday more people can come in and talk, but I honestly have this
next Tuesday, Mr. Sanchez, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday it is?
Tuesday is the public, we'll open the public hearing.
So I just wanted to let you guys know that that's how many people do not want poles in the front of their homes.
And if I can, let me just, and I probably misspoke at the meeting. I had talked to Mr. Lavelle. He had told me that he had sent people out and he had not heard back yet. That's what, so, I mean, at that point, so if I said there was no one objecting, that was my mistake. He just told me he had
not a problem, sir. Not at all. I just want to make
sure that, and I know he's trying to listen to your concerns and trying to figure out how they can address and it looks like you've got 12 homeowners involved in.
Yes, correct? Definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Wait a minute, hang on a second. Mr. Cunha. Dan?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good time. I'm sorry, a good time with the virus, getting it out of your systems and everything like that.
Dan, can you give me your address?
8 Valley Heights.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis walked by, and I was trying to talk to him about this because I have similar concerns. The biggest concern for me is that aesthetically, well, my family just happened to be the first family up in that, along with some other families. So we've had those poles sitting out aesthetically, how beautiful the whole street looks. And to put a pole in a cul-de-sac to feed Mrs. LaRose and the house over there, and then go and feed across the street, number 7, and then feed 8. Now I would be a transmitting pole, which would mean I'd cover the call on the rest of the electric down to the other few houses on our side. The whole problem with this is having a pole in a cul-de-sac is aesthetically, it's horrible. Like Dennis was saying, if you had a fire going down there, you're not going to get through. The houses are small capes. They aren't large capes. They're small capes. So they have very little ground to play with. But the big problem, the bother is people are going to look at it and our property values are going to go down. People are not going to buy the house looking like that, especially if they've seen the house before, the way it looked, the whole street. So by what Verizon is doing here is they're forcing us, or trying to force us, and to go along with something that Dennis and several others who keep their property absolutely pristine. Mr. Sanchez does a wonderful job. Everybody in the Valley does a wonderful job with their house. We don't want this junk out in the front of our house. We want what's there. We would like Dennis came up with a good idea. Go 3 feet to the side of the pole. I'm a utility person. I'm a gas fitter. I've been working in utilities forever. And this is not an impossible thing to do. Put another pole back, or stronger pole, put them together, whatever you got to do. But I looked at the poles, they're not rotted out. Not bad at all. But it's a poor access way for large vehicles, like I said, but that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Are you still umpiring?
I certainly am, sir. I miss you on the field. My
You never
40,
threw me out, so that was good.
my 48th year this year.
Is that right?
48. Trying to make 50. I don't know.
Hey, I'd love to have made 50 coaching. That would have been good. As we go down memory lane here.
Yeah, you were truly a gentleman, truly one of the best gentlemen and coaches I ever ran across, really.
All right, don't get me all broken down.
I know, Terry. I know.
That's why he's the mayor.
I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, congratulations by the way, Terry, on that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Okay, Mr. O'Connell, would you like to speak on behalf of the gas and electric? Or you unmute?
They're still on mute.
Yep, you're on mute. You're good now.
Good evening. Sorry
Good
about that.
Okay.
Mayor Murphy and Councilor McGee, we're a year into the pandemic and we're just still figuring out how to use the technology.
Join the club.
Well, thank you for having us tonight, and we appreciate the comments from Dennis and Dan. And as we've moved forward with this project over the last several years, we have certainly taken into consideration the neighborhood's feelings and tried to look at several different alternative options that might be viable for Valley Heights. So just to back up a little bit, I'm going to take this off because, you know, I'm fully vaccinated and they have masks on. So, but since 2002, we have been working throughout the city of Holyoke to convert 4,800 volt primary utility lines throughout the city to 13,800 volts. And this helps with line loss and also reliability for customers. And this is something that we have to do to create redundant paths for less outage times throughout the city. And so Valley Heights has been an area where we've been watching the infrastructure closely and just trying to figure out exactly what we can do to that infrastructure to make sure that customers on that street continue to have reliable and safe service from the Holyoke Gas and Electric. Right now, there's some very severe accessibility issues in the backyard and aging infrastructure. So those poles are 70+ years old, and there's infrastructure on those poles that needs to be replaced. And in addition to the conversion that needs to take place. There's been natural vegetation that's grown around these poles, and also people have put in, you know, sheds on their properties and swing sets and things like this that are very close to electric infrastructure, which is concerning for us, considering safety for the whole community, and also safety of our crews and line crews trying to get to this infrastructure and make improvements on it. So right now in the backyards, there are on Valley Heights, there's 9 Verizon poles with backyard facilities from HG&E, Verizon, and Comcast serving 20 homes there. In order to, you know, improve this infrastructure, we've looked at 2 options very closely. The underground option does not work. It's very expensive, and I don't think the 3 utility companies that are currently on the poles would be able to get together and make that solution work for the neighborhood. So you may end up having an underground solution, and then you also have a backyard solution still back there. But we also looked at a 25-foot right-of-way. So we'd have to reclaim the right-of-way that's in the backyard, and we need 25 feet from the pole line to do so, 12.5 feet on either side of the pole line in those backyards. And we know that some of the yards in that neighborhood aren't, you know, they're not huge, and we wouldn't want to do that to those customers and kind of take over their property like that. That seems like it would be very intrusive to personal property. So the putting the line in the right-of-way on the street seemed to be, in the public right-of-way, seemed to be the best solution that we could come up with for the neighborhood. I have some pictures that I could share with you of the design, or also of some of the infrastructure that we currently have in the backyard, if that would be helpful, or I could send it to you guys, whatever you think.
Jeffrey, can you let her be able to show those on the?
You should have screen sharing capability now.
I do.
You're very kind to these people, Jeffrey.
So I'm just going to show you quickly some of the images. Can you guys see this here?
Yes.
These pictures? Yep. Okay, so here you can see one of the utility lines next to two fences and a shed. Here there's a fence and a shed very close by. Here there's a swing set and a fence and also a shed of some kind. And so if we were to look at the 25-foot right-of-way, customers would be responsible for removing any of those obstructions. Of course, we would remove the natural vegetation that's there, but we would need to have customers remove some of these facilities in their backyard. And then this is the proposed solution here. If you guys may have already seen this, but there would be one pole located right here. HG&E's proposed pole is right here next to the gas station between the first house on the left on Valley Heights. And then there's a pole here, another pole here, another pole here, 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 and there. And three of these poles in blue are street lights right now. So those would go from being a concrete street light to a wooden pole.
And just to note on that design about the cul-de-sac issue, when designing this with Verizon in mind, we tried to put the least amount of poles on the street. We do not have to put that in the cul-de-sac. By putting one on the property line of number 3 and 7, and on the property line of 8 and 4, we can do that without putting it in the cul-de-sac. So it'd be one extra pole, but again, we were trying to minimize the number of poles that we're going to add on the street. So that's kind of an easy design change if that's a big deal to the neighborhood. We do not have to be in the cul-de-sac, but we were trying to minimize the new infrastructure we wanted to add there.
And you can see this green line that kind of goes in a U shape. Well, this line here and this line here, that delineates that 25-foot right-of-way that we would need to take back if we were to reinstall the poles in the backyard. And as I mentioned, we just felt like that would be very, that would be tough for the customers in that neighborhood, and we wouldn't want to have to do that. And we thought the public right-of-way would be a better solution. And in addition, to the infrastructure that's currently there, we're forecasting down the road, we have this climate bill to be net zero by 2050. So we see electrification coming our way, and we know that this project would allow this neighborhood to adopt electric vehicles or air source heat pumps or whatever additional electric load that they needed to adopt. In addition to other services, like potential services like fiber to the home, we're obviously doing a campaign on interest to fiber to the home right now. So having the poles out front of these houses would allow us to easier implement some of these services that could be available to customers on Valley Heights.
Okay. Any other thoughts there? And if not, I think Mr. Cunha wants to have either make a comment or ask a question. Mr. Cunha?
Yes. Pardon me. The problem we are still facing here is, as you notice, the poles will be on the even side of Valley Heights. That being said, except down by the cul-de-sac, no matter which way you have it, you're still going to have the lines running across, say for number 12, number 11's it's all going to run across the street. Again, the lines are going to be the height of a a Cape Cod house, a small Cape Cod house. Again, I think this is not aesthetically desirable, and it's not safe, as we need a fire truck or something down there, as Dennis had said. I don't see that happening. I just find the whole problem is just it's a problem. It's going to be a problem for everybody that lives on that street. If you had a cul-de-sac, I asked the members of the gas company, the electric company, would you like new wires running across the middle of your street after you've had this everything's been working beautifully? Just replace the poles as we suggested. All of us have been talking about it up in the street. Replace what you got, clean it out. If you get that 25 easement along the back of the property, then what you got to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Councilor McGee? Any thoughts?
No, I mean, we know what is being proposed, and we have seen these maps before. I know on Tuesday, more of the neighborhood is looking to come, because I know a few had contacted me but couldn't make tonight, but they said they would try and be there for Tuesday. So Tuesday at the public hearing, I think we'll hear from more of the residents in that area as to what they feel is what they want in their neighborhood for safety, as well as for a lot of other things that we heard tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McGee. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask a question through the chair to Kate.
Yep.
Kate, on the poles that are currently located in the backyards, have you had contact with the owners about those poles being removed or being kept?
So you mean to replace those poles in the backyard?
What are the feelings of the owners that have the poles now? Because they're on the property lines of Taylor Street and Valley Heights, correct?
Yes, yes, and they're only.
Yeah, they only serve Valley Heights.
They only serve Valley Heights at this time. So we would need a buffer 12 feet into the Taylor Street side of.
No, I understand that part. With the owners of the property on Taylor Street and the owners of the property on Valley Heights, what do they feel about the poles being moved?
Well, it depends. I know Vinny spoke to every customer on that street, or well, at least he reached out to every customer on that street the week of April 20th, and spoke to many of them. And Vinny, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, according to my notes and my lists that I've been keeping track of, I've received approximately 10 to 11 yeses. One was, borderline, and then I have 4 hard no's. And I have about 4 pending that I just have not talked to or communicated with, but they probably have received some kind of notification in the mail.
Yeah, we sent out letters to every customer within 300 feet of the pole. Verizon also sent out postcards. And in the letter that we sent, we also provided that map that I just shared with everybody. So we definitely did notify customers and gave them Vinny's number so they could call us if they had some concern they wanted to discuss.
And
Mr. President?
Has there been any contact with Taylor Street?
No, not as yet. Right? No, not as of yet, since we don't have a final plan as of yet.
Well, I'm
Mr.
talking
Chairman?
about the existing poles on Taylor Street right now. We have existing poles that abut the backyards of Taylor Street, correct?
Correct.
I know the Verizon's poles, but the gas and electric uses them. So
We are joint owners on them.
Yeah, do you think it'd be practical or feasible to contact the Taylor Street owners that have, should have something to say about this too, about new poles being put in their backyards?
Contact them,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, I understand what
Poles are unsafe.
Mr. Cunha and Mr. Sanchez are saying. I have a pole in my front yard. I don't like it. They don't look good. They're safe, but I don't like the way they look. But right now, I'd just like to know what the people who's got the poles in their backyard feel.
All the poles are on the fence line of Taylor. Valley Heights. So right now the poles there's a fence line that between Taylor and Valley Heights there where the poles are. All the poles are on the Valley Heights side. and all the access is that way. I think with Taylor Street, there's also a slight grade change, especially as you go down the street, starts to go up. So the flattest part, if you will, is on the Valley Heights side. So most of that access will be on the Valley Heights side. Absent of taking down a whole fence line, you know, that splits essentially the backyards of Taylor and Valley Heights.
I understand, but I think I'm not being clear. If I were a property owner on Taylor Street and I had a pole in my backyard or on my property line, you know, don't I have a say in this?
We actually, you know, we did send notification out to several Taylor Street residences within the 300-foot buffer zone. But I would say there's probably about 3 or 4 towards the end of Taylor Street that probably have not been contacted, just because they weren't part of that that buffer zone for our pole that we petitioned for. But I don't think it would be an issue for us to contact the remaining customers to at least have that conversation.
I think it's important because the wires come from Taylor Street, correct?
No, they come from Lincoln
Street.
And then down the backyard of Valley Heights. So none of those poles service Taylor Street.
No, I know they don't service Taylor Street, but they cross over the abutting property lines.
They run parallel with it.
Parallel.
So, yes.
Okay. I'm not being clear, but you're helping me. So I just think that, you know, in my I don't like, none of us, and I get to guess much agrees, like to have these telephone poles and these electrical poles in our front yards, but I don't think we want them in our backyards either. But we'd love to have everything underground. Anybody got a cost on that? I mean, our user rates would go up threefold if we try to put everything underground. We know that, and it's
right.
You know, unfortunately, it's a price we have to pay. But I just think Taylor Street should at least be able to weigh in on this. But that's my opinion.
I'll say, Councilor Good.
Thank you,
Councilor Graney.
Yeah, Councilor McGivern touched on what I was going to say. There's 3 scenarios for this project. What's the cost differential for putting the cable underground? It's going to be a substantial cost to replace the poles, to get rid of the vegetation and all that stuff. What's the cost differential? That would probably be an important figure before moving ahead with this project, if we knew what the differential in cost was. Thank you.
Yeah, so the cost differential is at least 5 times more, which works out to be about $20,000 a customer. So it is pretty substantial, and that's more than what our rate structure can carry, and we wouldn't be able to cover our costs through the lifetime of a customer at our current rates and at that figure.
What's Verizon kicking in?
Half the pole cost. I think they only have 3 customers on the street, if I'm correct.
Thank you.
What's that, Councilor Graney? Councilor Graney, you all set?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cunha, one more time, I'll let you talk, and then we're going to try to move here. So,
Yeah,
Mr. Cunha.
I just wanted to say that I wasn't notified about this meeting. Dennis, we didn't get any mail or anything at the house about this. Dennis was kind enough to tell me about the meeting. Well, Gas Electric, you say that everybody was notified. I wasn't notified. So, I mean, you know, there's a few other people that would be on this if they were notified. Dennis did what he did after work and went around and talked to all the people he could get that were home at that time, because I didn't know the meeting was happening tonight. And I'm kind of surprised at that. That's all I had to say. I think the better communication by the Gas Electric or whomever would be nice. But again, as I said, aesthetically and everything, but the most important thing is you're just going to have poles too low, the wires. But thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we just ask Dan if he was notified for the public hearing next Tuesday?
What What was that
there's a
again?
public hearing next Tuesday night. Were you notified for that?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. Nope, I got nothing at all. When is it, Tuesday?
How about for last Tuesdays?
I'm sorry?
The item first came up last Tuesday as a public hearing. So
I said,
got noticed that it would have been last Tuesday's meeting. Did you get that?
no, I didn't. The last one I sat in was tabled it. And I was going to ask about when you were going to have the next meeting and came up with 2 weeks. And then I found out from Dennis that you're having it tonight. So when's the next meeting you're going to have about this?
The public hearing for this is going to be next Tuesday,
Okay.
the 18th, and meeting
Time,
starts at 7.
where,
I
City
think
Hall?
you're one of the first items on the agenda. And I, because I didn't have the names of all the residents, I did ask Jeffrey to contact Mr. Sanchez because I knew he had, and I asked him if he would, I didn't personally ask him, but Jeffrey asked him if he would go around, and I thank you for doing that because I didn't have the names of everybody, and I wanted to invite as many neighbors as possible. So the public hearing, that would have been the notice that everybody should have gotten because they're all impacted by it. So,
Good.
Mr. Sanchez, I assume you got a
So-
notice on the public hearing, correct? Yeah, okay.
So I'm just going to say,
Go ahead.
Terry, not there, Terry. So Tuesday, it's going to be where and what time?
Tuesday at
The
7
meeting.
o'clock, and it'll be another Zoom meeting with the full.
Oh, another Zoom. I thought you said
with
in
the
here.
full city
Okay,
council.
Zoom
Yeah,
meeting.
with the
All
full
right.
city council.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the pleasure of the committee at this point, I'd say if we send it back, knowing there's a public hearing to take place, just send it back.
I think we have to refer it for the public hearing because, people, not just tonight, and I'm happy that Mr. Cunha, Dan, and Mr. Sanchez Dennis came to talk to us because it's important, but I think we need to have that public hearing reopened on next Tuesday and listen to as many people as we possibly can. I just not sure here. Kate, do you know, Verizon owns those poles, so were they required to notify people of the public hearing, or was it the gas and electric required?
So Verizon sent a postcard and we sent a letter for the May 4th hearing. We originally thought that this was going to be taken up at on May 4th. So we sent out a letter in advance of that meeting, and so did Verizon. We will send a follow-up letter to customers in advance of next week's meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. And would you be able to tell us, because of it's a multitude, or there's more than one scenario here, would everybody be notified on the street, or just where the new poles are proposed?
So we notified everybody on the street, plus all customers within 300 feet of our pole. I'm assuming Verizon notified everybody on the street because their poles go all the way down the street. But we can also add Taylor Street to that notification if that would be helpful.
Thank you. I think it would be, and I think everybody's right here. The problem is trying to figure out a solution, which is not easy because, as Councilor Graney said, cost is a big difference, but there's also a lot of issues in the backyards on both sides of the street, but they also include Taylor Street. So I just think we have to get as many people involved in the conversation as possible. Thank you.
Fully agreed, Mr. Councilman McGivern. So I'll entertain a motion
that we've been complied with for this purpose, and that we refer this back to the city council for the public hearing.
Okay, so item 1 and item 2 have been complied with and sent back to the full council for the public hearing. And then we'll do item 3, I think, Todd, we can say it's been complied with.
Correct.
So item 1 and 2 were complied with, referring back to the council for the public hearing on Tuesday. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On item 3, order that has been complied with.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what's going to happen, we'll have the public hearing. We've tried to get as much information as we can. Obviously, councilors have heard some things that we hadn't heard before, so I appreciate your coming in and explaining things. And we will have the public hearing, and any residents that want to come and talk at the public hearing are certainly welcome to. and we appreciate your input. And believe me, we're trying to find a way that we can try to make as many people happy as possible.
So much.
Thank you. All right. I'll take a motion to take up item 4.
We go to item 4.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Introduced by Councilor Hernandez. Property owners at 287, 291 Elm Street, Carrie and Arthur Natz, and reached out to possibly collaborate with city, HPD, and other landlords such as Tony Vasoni, who owns 294, 298 Elm Street, and the buildings on Walnut Street adjacent to 300 Walnut Street in pursuit of installation of surveillance in an attempt to combat the overall criminal activity, drug, human trafficking in these areas. I have full contact information with both of them and would like to set up a meeting amongst all departments, including the Honorable Mayor's Office, to initiate a plan to carry out our goal. So, Councilor Hernandez, I just wanted to bring this back up. We were kind of going through the last couple of months in the winter, trying to work our way through it, and we've had obviously changes going on. So I did want to bring this back up, and I don't know if you've had contact with the landlords since, and if you can let us know if they've seen any improvement. No.
Haven't had contact since. The information that I just received was that there is a grant for surveillance cameras that landlords can tap into, and it's administered through One Holyoke. So that information, I just received it and was going to share that with these landlords. I just received it today from the Office of Community Development.
Okay.
Solar. So she sent me over that, that there's funds available, and perhaps maybe more than one landlord can tap into, these funds through One Holyoke. So I'm going to gather the information and then contact the landlords to let them know that that's a viable, solution.
Okay.
So it's cost effective for them to install these surveillance. The only thing is that I'm not sure if depending on what type of system they use, can they connect it somehow with what we had spoken about the it was like a fiber optic connection, and perhaps for the Holyoke Police Department to be able to tap into those cameras so they can also see the activity in these areas.
We do have Captain Pratt with us, and we have Mike Moriarty from One Holyoke. So I think maybe they can answer both of those questions. So if Captain Pratt, if it's okay, I'm going to have Mr. Moriarty from One Holyoke talk about the grants, and then I'm going to have you talk about the connection to the police department, if that's okay. So, Mr. Moriarty, welcome aboard.
Yep. Thank you, Acting Mayor, Councilor, all around good guy, Murphy. I really do appreciate the opportunity to come back and speak about trying to enhance safety in any way we can. I've been an active participant in something called the Churchill Alliance for a long period of time, and we actually mapped out all of the landlords who live in a much broader area than I think Councilor Hernandez is referring to, but it is very much part of that map. And so for about 2 or 3 years now, there's just been an escalation of a variety of kinds of street crimes, particularly in those tree streets as you get to Walnut and Elm in the past 3 or 4 years. Not so much stationary drug dealing that has been something we've observed for a long time, kind of on that Chestnut Street corridor, running kind of between Sargent down to Maple and High. But this is more in motion. I think, as Libby mentioned, a lot of human trafficking, a lot of vagrancy. Of course, the housing profile there is a little bit different. It's not as many multifamily houses along there. This is an area with more row houses, with more 2 and 3 family structures. And so, it was suggested in an email that I received from Alicia Zoller today as well. We do have resources, and there are resources coming in to address safety and quality of life issues. This would be a reprogramming of some of our residential neighborhood improvement funds. And so couple of steps we would want to take is first to identify who among the property owners would benefit from having additional cameraing available. And then if we get a good scope of that, we would be able to understand what kind of costs are there, how we can coordinate so that this view on the street enhances the area in a coordinated and effective way. So I certainly would encourage that we have at least 1 or 2 neighborhood meetings, bring the police department in, get the benefit of their expertise. I do know we're probably not talking about wiring in direct access into the police department. That has some personnel implications and some cost implications that we know from past efforts is highly problematic. I think in this case, it's probably having homeowners have access to good cameraing with good recording in their homes where, we'd be able to at least have better identification and evidence available when incidents occur. But if it can go beyond that, if there's some practical broader scope, I'm quite willing to learn more about it and hear about it. That's just my sense from our past attempts to work this stuff. My guess is if we could have a meeting among the neighbors, and perhaps if Councilor Hernandez can connect us with some of the folks that have been reaching out to her, within the next 3 to 6 weeks and understand that scope, at some point during the summer, we might be able to understand the cost, get installation underway. I think that would probably be the best path forward.
Thank you. Councilor Hernandez.
Well, I mean, at least we know of the landlords that did come forward and met with us initially through the public safety meeting, which is the Elm Street Landlords, and also the landlords on the 300 block of Walnut Street. They're all interested in enhancing and adding security cameras. But if I hear you correctly, Mike, so this grant is available also like for single family homeowners. It doesn't have to be like a landlord in a multi-building setting.
So I guess typically residential neighborhood improvement program requires multifamily, at least 3 units or more. That is actually not atypical of this neighborhood. If we think of, some of the triple deckers that are there, duplexes would be problematic, but if it's part of a broader, and Alicia's here, so she might be able to, correct me if I'm missing anything here, but if it was part of a coordinated effort that is helping many multifamilies, that is dealing with a blight and safety issue in the neighborhood, we might be able to be somewhat more inclusive if we know the camera coverage is going to be effective in affecting the safety. But in that case, it would not be individual property owners reaching out to us for money for the cameras. It would instead be a somewhat more defined program that's covering this specific geography. Does that sound right to you, Alicia?
Alicia?
Good evening. It does. The only thing I'm hesitant on is I would want to see what the response would be. I'm just thinking along the lines of some of the federal compliance requirements that we want to try to figure out. And what I use as an example is a couple of years ago, we tried in coordination with the fire department to do a sprinkler and fire alarm program. And it just didn't launch because some of the federal compliance requirements. So it might be better off, we might be better off if we do more of a case by case, building by building approach rather than trying to do it wholesale. But certainly, if we've got multiple apartment owners, investment property owners who are interested, and then there's 1 or 2, 3, 4 single families that want to take advantage of it, we certainly would try to figure that out. That's not the intent of the neighborhood improvement program, but if there's an interest and there's a demand and the police department says to us, hey, there's a need, we certainly could look at that.
And And I would say for individual properties, the multifamily owners, this is actually within the program scope as it is and would be fairly easy, but that's only the multifamilies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and apartments that we're talking about are multifamilies, and we've been, and the problems were pretty intense. If I can bring Captain Pratt in to talk of, I mean, I know we've had a few reports in terms of the activity in those areas, and I know when we first met, there were tenants being held kidnapped, if you will, kidnapped in their own apartment, and I guess I'll call them drug gangs taking over the building. So if we were to have cameras, Captain Pratt, that weren't connected to the police station, but I would assume if we had some evidence that would help in terms of maybe catching the people that are doing this.
Yeah, any camera, will obviously help. We have been in contact with the landlords from this order.
Yeah.
We have been working with them. I know we went as far as to get them quotes for the camera. I know that's where we were at last time. We also sometimes, if they get their own cameras, if they give us their, access, we can access them that way as well. So there's a lot of ways we can go, and we can always use cameras even after the fact if it's not as good as live, obviously, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Okay, so you've already been meeting with or communicating with the landlords about trying to get some kind of camera system?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hernandez again?
Yes, so, I mean, and thank you, Captain Pratt, for bringing that up. So I guess that there's different ways of accessing these cameras remotely if landlords after installation give these permission rights to the, right departments, to the police department. But so if the police department is looking for quotes, then and type of cameras, and then the landlords, move forward, at least the ones that came forward in the meeting, so we can tap in to the grant to install the suggestion from the police department for these multifamily building owners, because that's basically where all the problems are occurring. And that's where everything is being, the enterprise, if I may add, taking place from. As you guys all already know, last year we had that, very unpleasant and very sad situation, which the 15-year-old was, gunned down right in the corner of Sargent, and basically is in the same radius where these building property owners need this extra surveillance and these cameras. So is there a possibility that with the quotes that the police department is providing, that then we can access the grant through One Holyoke to install these cameras?
Mr. Moriarty?
Yeah, if I may. So I have to pull some of this information together and coordinate with Alicia, because the gathering of quotes has some parameters as well that we have to take a look at. It's actually very helpful to be doing that right now, because we also need to know what some of the specifications are that are going to make things work best. And I think Captain Pratt and the police department's expertise is going to be really, really helpful with that. But again, it's also narrowing the scope in my mind a little bit too, because I think as you're describing Elm Street, we're kind of dealing with that area sort of between Sargent and Hampshire Street, where I was thinking of Elm Street going maybe all the way back towards Dwight, which is more of the single family homes. Certainly between Hampshire and Sargent, I think there's nothing but a couple of large blocks standing there. Walnut Street, again, 300 block. I don't have a map accessible in front of me right now. I'm thinking that's the area over in the vicinity of Manny's Market. And there, it is a much more mixed thing. There's a large housing authority facility, but then across the street, it's mostly 3 family and a couple of very large single family homes. So that's where that mix of housing becomes a little bit challenging to follow the community development block grant rules. But the bottom line is, the kind of outcome we're talking about here is right in line with what the goals of the CDGB program are. I think just following this meeting, some outreach between my office and the police department and with some of the property owners, because it's a smaller group than I was originally thinking I was hearing about. I think we can turn things around and get some clarity on this in a pretty short period of time.
Thank you. If I can, Councilor Tone. You're muted, Peter. You're muted. There you
How's
go.
that? There you go.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's important here. The summertime is coming, and I know this was brought up by the councilor in December and then January, and I know the police department's been working trying to contact the owners of the buildings, and with One Holyoke and the CDBG people to try to get this moving, because before you know it, here it is June and July. It's already starting. The warmer weather's already here. So, and I talked to. I think I signed down with Councilor Hernandez in this issue. I'm very aware that the problems on this stretch of Churchill. It's a very tough neighborhood, and as you stated earlier, Mayor Murphy, that people are basically hostage in their own homes with the activity around there. So, whatever we can do to try to get this moving as soon as possible is getting the quotes, getting the cameras out there, and I think the police department can utilize whatever kind of cameras we get. Whether it's, afterwards, the photos of the people in the area, it doesn't have to be, that day or live cameras, but any type of photos that we have of these people that are, committing these crimes, I think it's vital, and to get moving. And anything that I need to do, I'd be willing to help out with Councilor Hernandez is trying to contact some of these landowners, homeowners, the people that own these blocks that are really, I'm sure, concerned for their residents, to get this moving along. So, but Councilor Hernandez, anything I can do to help out, I'm willing to do that for you.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilor.
you.
So if I can make this suggestion that we table this and ask Mr. Moore, I'll get you, Councilor McGivern, before we make the table in motion, but that we end up having Mr. Moriarty and Captain Pratt and maybe meet with a few of the landlords so that whatever cameras we do and make sure that we qualify. I know my order 6 relates to the RNIP program too, in terms of asthma relief. So but I also recognize that if people don't feel safe in their apartment building, and we can do something to make them feel safer, that is a neighborhood improvement program. And so that also plays a role. And so as we get into that, if what I suggest makes sense, I hope we go that direction. And I would also encourage us to move as fast as we can, the same kind of thing. Let me go to Councilor McGivern, and then I'll come back to you, Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome everybody. It's always a pleasure to see Mike Moriarty from One Holyoke, Chief Pratt. It's always a pleasure to see you. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of you in the near future. and Alicia, thank you for coming in. It's a pleasure. I want to support Councilor Hernandez's efforts and commend the efforts of the 3 guests that we have with us this evening. And historically speaking, not just cameras, but historically speaking, these organizations are an important part of ensuring and working on the public safety of the neighborhood known as Churchill. Now, historically speaking, you got to think of, well, it might be a little distance now, Lippy, but about 35 years ago, I represented Ward 4, which at that time did include Churchill also. And 35 years ago, we had some efforts in this city that proved successful. In Ward 2, Councilor Murphy, a man named Carlos Vega, was part of an effort with a number of other individuals that founded Nueva Esperanza, that took over some housing that was dilapidated, got some neighborhood groups involved, and did something that changed a section of our city that was ridden with drug dealers, ridden with crime, and a lot of problems. And they successfully got the neighborhood involved, and we know the history there. In Ward 1, Mr. Moriarty, a man named Dick Pershain ran an organization called Old Holyoke Development, who put up duplex after duplex after duplex, which to me was one of the most successful programs because it brought in low income ownership and pride in property. And we also we were just at the end of CETA, and we had a community organization. I think it might have been funded through block grants back then, Alicia. And I can't remember who was your counterpart in the 1980s, but the name will come to me in a minute. But the money was spent well in each of these neighborhoods, and essentially, crime was addressed. Neighborhoods were changed dramatically because of all the efforts. It worked. Well, at one meeting, block grant meeting, I remember this vividly. Mr. Kershane was looking for some money for the duplex programs, for home ownership programs, and for the neighborhood improvement program monies too. And at that time, I asked Mr. Kershane, because I was representing Churchill, Dick, we are seeing a little change in a very quiet neighborhood known as Churchill. We lost a lot of property, but it was relatively quiet. Not only did I represent Churchill, but I went to church at Sacred Heart, and I was there on a regular basis. And I said, they just nicknamed a park at the corner of Sargent and Sargent and Chestnut Street, and it's called Needle Park. And I said, when are we going to see duplex homes come up in the Churchill neighborhood? When are we going to see some changes in the Churchill neighborhood? And he kind of looked at me and he said, it's one neighborhood at a time, and the need right now is in Ward 1. And I agree, and I know Chief Pratt will agree with me that when you look at drug trafficking and drug dealing, you can push it out of a neighborhood by doing the right things and getting the neighborhood involved. You push it into another neighborhood. It came to Churchill. So I support these efforts, and I hope we can push the drug dealing and drug trafficking out of the Churchill neighborhood. I wish Ward 6, all the councilors, excuse me, I'm showing my age. I wish the Ward 6 councilor was here, because maybe he would have a little crystal ball like I did 35 years ago. Let's keep up the efforts, but let's push this out of the city, not just out of a neighborhood.
Amen.
Thank you.
Councilor Hernandez, did you want to take?
Yes, I just wanted to, well, now that Councilor McGivern spoke, it gave me more information to share, but yes, I mean, it does push out, like when one part of the city improves, it pushes, people out to other areas. And when you speak about, the different duplexes being built, we do have that. I mean, there was a lot of, with the Churchill, with the Hope 6, that was a beautiful improvement, transformative improvement in that area. We even had those houses built throughout the Elm Street, area as well, and Chestnut. So we have a lot of single families there, rental and homeowner alike. So now we just have to take control of improving the public safety in these areas and instilling back the respect and integrity, right? That these neighborhoods and the neighbors and residents that live there are they want to be safe and they want their children to be safe. So that's what we have to push for. And then the other thing that I wanted to share was that we have all the contact information for the landlords that met with us. So we can share that with Mike and Alicia and be able to make it as smooth as possible as to communication, channels. So we can move quite rapidly with this because it's just around the corner. The good weather is coming and we already have, all the activity coming back up, and we just need to do this sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Councilman Given, one more time.
Yeah, and Libby's absolutely right. I stood on the Armory steps when U.S. Senator John Kerry spoke about bringing the Hope 6 project to Holyoke. And also, just one thing I would also commend is the residents who took over and made a co-op out of Jackson Street, which had tremendous Jackson Street apartment site that was ridden with drug dealers. It had a tremendous success there. And yes, the Old Holyoke development, now One Holyoke, has done a lot of efforts in terms of developing property in Churchill. The point though is, let's make sure, let's take care of Churchill. We know where the hot spots are. let's attack the hot spots, but let's anticipate where those hot spots are going to be in 10 years.
Okay, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion, if there's no one else, that we table this and ask Mr. Moriarty, Captain Pratt, and Alicia Zeller to get together with the landlords. Let's get the best camera technology we can that we can afford, and try to make sure that we get this installed in a relatively quick time. I'll try to take this up at our first meeting in June, just to see where we are, if that is okay with the three of you. And if it is okay, and we'll work on Councilor Hernandez. You make sure you get in touch with Mr. Moriarty, and he'll make the contact with the landlords. I mean, I think it's a start, and we got to be aggressive. And you're all correct. And one thing I will say, and I've been saying it, we got to continue to get rid of vacant lots and make people recognize that we care about everyone in the neighborhood, and we're going to demonstrate that by making sure that we start to make those neighborhoods look better. And it's a combination. I mean, people want to know that you care about them. We need to make sure we show that. And I certainly think we are. All of our intentions are to show that, but sometimes you got to be more obvious about it. So I entertain a motion to table this.
Motion to table with a follow-up in June from all parties.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, item 5 on the agenda.
Thank you,
Make
everyone.
a motion to 5.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, introduced by myself, and it's ordered that the council work, and Mike and Alicia, if you can stay around, because you're both involved in the asthma one as well. So thank you. And I know I got a few other people that are coming in for that. Order that the council work with the city solicitor, the police chief, our state legislative delegation, if needed, to put in place significant penalties for dirt bikers and others endangering the public with their tactics on public streets. This is both a quality of life issue and a public safety issue that needs addressing. And I'm just gonna, I didn't think we had as much, and I don't think we have as much a problem as Springfield, but we are starting to have people that are starting to become much more prevalent. And I saw it's 2 instances in the last 2 or 3 weeks. One, or probably the last 4 weeks. One was right at the intersection on Beach Street by Mackenzie Stadium. And I'm going to say 5 or 6 dirt bikers went through, and it was at, I'm going to say 5 o'clock. They went through the red light, took a left against traffic coming the other way, went in and out of cars down Ross Avenue to get to 391, did wheelies, and obviously causing, and then last week I just saw the same thing down here on Main Street. There were cars going from Dean going towards Springdale, and these dirt bikers were going in between them, in and out. So, I want to make sure we don't get anyone killed, but I want to make sure whatever we can do. I know Springfield has tried to do something. Captain Pratt, have you had any contact with the Springfield police? I know I think they've actually confiscated the bikes and then had some kind of penalty to get them back.
Yes, we have. We've actually been kind of on this already.
Okay.
We started a little sort of mini task force with surrounding communities, because what we found was if Springfield is out doing something, they're going to kind of chase them to Holyoke. If we're out doing something, we'll chase them to Chicopee, and so on. So we have a little team working with those other agencies. We've done a few things. A couple of the days we went to do it, it was raining, so that didn't help us. But it's a collaboration with these communities plus the state police. We've had some success, really more in the kind of watching and see where they go, where they've been keeping these things, and taking action once we can find them.
Are we able to, let's say you saw what, or one of your officers saw what I saw. I'm assuming, obviously they would get a ticket. And because they're endangering, is that something that allows us to have more authority than just giving a ticket?
Yes. Most of that activity, if it's an illegal, like it's arrestable. But, the challenge comes with catching them.
Yep.
So, and doing it safely, not just for us, but for them as well.
Yeah, and for the public.
Exactly.
No, I appreciate. It's not an easy problem to solve. I know. I'm glad to see we're already aware of it, because this is the first. I don't think I saw any last year, but I saw 2 major incidents, and I know I've heard several others, but I haven't seen them, so I can't specifically talk about them.
We definitely are starting to get some reports, and we're, it kind of goes a little hand in hand with the drag racing stuff too, because we've noticed some bikes showing up at those as well. So, we've got a pretty good little plan going, a way to attack this and do it safely. So that's our goal.
Okay, I appreciate it, Captain Pratt, and if you don't mind, keep me informed on what's going on with that. In my other capacity.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon? You're muted, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just had a question, because about 2 weeks ago, I was on Jarvis Ave and I saw a bunch of these small bikes do what I would consider to be swarming a car. It was hard for me to tell, though, if they were friendly with the person in the car or if they were hassling the person in the car that then went into an apartment complex. So I was just wondering if you've gotten any calls from drivers that this type of thing has happened to them and they've felt that it was a threatening thing. So I'm wondering if there's been any calls of that sort.
I'm not sure if there's been actual calls along those lines, but I could certainly look into that, get back to you.
Yeah, it was hard to tell if it was friendly or unfriendly, in the moment.
For us in the big picture, it wouldn't make a difference if it was friendly or not. If they're illegal and they're on the street, it's arrestable, even if they're best friends with the guy in the car.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And David, on the encounters I've had have been mostly on Maple Street or on High Street, right around the 391 finish line there. And it's not just with dirt bikes, but it's also with those legal small motorcycles. But any two-wheeler cannot go between cars. Is that correct? Any motorcycle cannot go between cars that are stopped at a light or driving, in a lane.
That's correct. I know what you're talking about. It's not someone just going around a car normal. They're weaving in and out and doing dangerous things. It's all reckless endangerment, and it could all be addressed.
Yeah. The weaving in and out to get the advantage of the stop sign or the red light and so forth, and just it's like you're at an Indy 500 race where someone's trying to pass you just to get in front for the lead. But my encounters around 391, are there actually any reports of people driving up 391? I know there's a lot of drag racing on 391 these days, and some incredible high speed maneuvers, from people driving cars. And I've seen, bikes on 91. I don't know if I've seen a dirt bike. I've seen some of those small motorcycles.
I would think that if there were calls, more than likely someone's on their cell phone, that's going to go directly to the state police. So they would probably have handled that. We may be notified if they were, getting off in Holyoke or whatever, or getting on in Holyoke, but chances are that state police would have handled that.
Thank you.
Well, Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Murphy, and thank you, Captain Pratt, for coming in. My concern is, and I've noticed in the past 2 summers anyways, is the area up in Tokeniki Road, going over Holy Family Road to Lower Westfield Road, and even coming over Whiting Farms Road, that whole area where these little dirt bikes or mini bikes are really flying, and they're racing at times. And I know it's a difficult job for police, but if you just try to keep an eye on those areas, I know it's hard to chase them because you chase them too fast and they go and they get hurt. Then they come after probably the city saying, you got to weigh things out. But if you can keep an eye on that area with this time of year, with the dirt bikes, and it is harmful to not just them, but to other residents, people just walking or just people that are in other vehicles, but especially in that area up in Ward 5, if you could just sort of keep an eye on that, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what we're doing as well as part of that task force is intelligence gathering, trying to anticipate where they might be on any given day or night, and trying to get resources into that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Any other counselors? Counselor Bacon? You're muted again. You're muted again.
Light, and I keep tying myself up. Thank you. I would just like to note that the major issue we've been having out in Ward 5 is the racing over near Babola and Whitney Ave. And that's been an ongoing thing for a number of months that I've been hearing from constituents. And I imagine that'll start heating up again pretty soon too. So I thank you for whatever you can do out here. It's appreciated.
No problem. We are aware of that area too, as well.
Thank you.
And I would just say, I want to thank Captain Pratt, because I asked him to do some, and he did make sure that he got a crew out there to take, and it was out in your ward, Councilor Bacon. I try to take care of you. And I appreciate his quick response. I had people complaining, I called them, and the next day we were out there trying to do something about it. So, and I know we're going to talk about it on Friday. So, but you know, we're trying.
It is greatly appreciated from both of you.
We're working on it. So, any other thoughts, comments about this? I mean, I just wanted to bring it up, make sure everybody was alert of it. If there's anything, Captain Pratt, that you think we could do to enhance your enforcement, or to get rid of maybe a second offense, we get the bike away from the people. I don't know what can be done. I know Springfield, I thought Springfield impounded them, but I'm not sure.
I think they have been in certain circumstances. You know, clearly if it's a registered vehicle that's still acting negligently and actions taken, not necessarily impounding them, but it's certainly an area we could look at for sure.
Okay. Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask through the chair to the whole police department. I know that Springfield utilizes with collaboration with, I think it's the state police helicopter. So when they're chasing these groups of, illegal motorcycles, they have the helicopter up in the air, guiding them on the ground, and it makes it easier for them to locate them. Is that something that's possible in Holyoke? And if not, what can we do so we can also have that type of support?
I mentioned it earlier, we are working with them already. It's part of that task force thing. So we do have that capability. We have that partnership. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion. The order has been complied with.
So
Motion
moved.
that's complied with.
Okay.
Second.
Aye. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. 3-0. Thank you, Captain Pratt. I think that might be the last thing I had for you on here. If you don't mind, can I just do one more thing with you? Because this came up and it's Councilor Bacon's order. So if we can go out of order, and if that would be okay on item 7. Oh, no, not
Motion
item 9.
Item 9. Go out of order, item 9.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And it's introduced by Councilor Bacon. Parking on Route 202 near the Appalachian Trail signs is creating a safety hazard. Invite conservation, state, and other parties to meet to locate a safe parking area for hikers, and consider removing trail signs from roads where parking is prohibited. I think we also have Yanni. Oh, there he is. Okay. You were over here before you moved on me. So, Councilor Bacon, let me have you take up the start of the order, and then
Thank you very much. And I made sure I wasn't muted this time. So I appreciate you taking this order up so quickly, because it is becoming an unfortunately very popular area for people to park on 202. And we never had anybody parking up there until the trail signs went up, because people weren't exactly aware of where the trail crossed the road. So what's developing now is a number of people parking there similar to what was happening near the reservoir. And we all know what was starting to happen there. My further concern with this particular location is that we have a traffic light plan to go up there, and we already have the 2 lanes of traffic coming up the hill from Westfield. So it's not a good area to have a lot of people parking. And now they're parking on both sides of the road, and people are running across the street with kids through all this traffic. Now, in the past, relative to the reservoir issue, we had been notified we had to put up no parking signs in order for the police department to be able to adequately enforce. But this situation, I think, is beyond that of putting up no parking signs. I just think we need to try to figure out, and I'm not familiar enough with the hiking trail and all the areas that it crosses in, where there may be places that hikers could be recommended to go to access the trail. All I can tell you is this one's getting really popular, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen, because I travel that road every day. So whatever ideas people have, I just threw out what I came up with, but it's certainly not everything. So I would welcome anything. Thank you.
You want to just throw your ideas out there? I see you shaking your head, so.
Yeah. So I actually went out and looked at the site myself this morning, and I met and talked with the city engineer, Bob Parent, who's here as well.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about the situation and different ideas that we had. I think a small thing to note is this isn't the Appalachian Trail, but the New England Trail. It's a
I thought I had that wrong after, yes.
Okay, yeah. So it's a federally recognized trail that goes through different parcels of different ownership, and it's partly part of the management is done by the Appalachian Mountain Club, but most of the time they get permission with volunteers to work on the different sections from whoever the property owners are. In the case of 202, on either side, it's Holyoke Water Department land, and some section of right-of-way actually along 202. It's pretty wide on the southern side. So at least those are the players who probably should be involved with any conversations. It's really, we talked about, Bob, you can chime in too if I'm missing anything. We were looking at the site distance heading west on 202. It's really not very good. Even to put in, there's a relatively flat area to the south where we would need permission from the water department to put a parking lot. And even then it might be dangerous just because of the speed of traffic going in both directions. As far as the signage, yeah. So, I think there needs to be some signage, because through hikers coming through, we don't want them getting confused and wandering along both sides of 202 as well. But it might be that we could place them further back so they're not as readily seen from the road and inviting to people parking as well. So just some thoughts we had.
Thank you. I know I did speak with Mr. Conti from the water department, and that area is absolutely prohibited from having cars there, because that is a secondary primary source, if you will, of water. And he definitely did not want to have additional parking there for a variety of reasons. He suggested, and I don't know, because it's Route 202, and I'm assuming the state has control in terms of parking, that no parking, but I don't know if we're entitled, if we have the power to do that. So I don't know, and he didn't, but I know he had very serious concerns about having parking at the reservoir property because of the restrictions. Councilor Bacon, then Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. And Yanni, thank you. I think your idea of having the trail markers be available to the hikers, but out of the vision of the drivers, is a really good one. There's certainly a core group that is aware of it now, but I think it would help down the road if it was out of the visual range on the road, but so that the hikers could stay in the proper, on the proper path. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yanni, thank you. And I think the key issue is parking, but not at the crossover of Route 202.
Right.
The Appalachian Trail has, in Massachusetts, has a lot of designated parking that is away from, you know, the major routes and the crossovers, but where there's access to the trail itself, where hikers know that they can park their vehicles for a period of time with some safety, get on the trail and do what they want to do. The New England Trail doesn't get that notoriety, but somewhere south or maybe a little north of Route 202, I'm sure we could find some parking, and maybe with the help of the state or federal government, get some way to designate it as that type of parking. It might be a little far-fetched, but I think it would at least get the people who want to get on the trail away from 202.
Yep. Mr. Parent, Bob, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. A couple of things. One, I just want to reinforce that everything Yoni said regarding the safety of that crossing. It is at a sharp turn. There are high rates of speed. So even if we could place a parking lot there, even if we had the control of the property, we didn't have a watershed to worry about, it would not be a very safe place to place a parking lot and to endorse people crossing Route 202. Let's see where it's going with this. You had mentioned the control of Route 202 of Westfield Road. Westfield Road is actually, it's a numbered state route, but it's fully under city control. And councilors may or may not be aware that there already is an ordinance on the book that prohibits parking all the way on Westfield Road from Homestead all the way to the city of Westfield and Holyoke line. So that any parking that is occurring that location right now is already in violation of a city ordinance. There are a couple of no parking signs posted on the south side of 202, right where the crossing is. So it's obvious to people that might be parking on that side of the street. I don't believe there are any on the north side of the street, but there are at least on the south side of the street. Yoni and I did take a quick look, and by no means exhaustive, is there any other locations? Are there any other trailhead type locations where you might be able to locate site parking? The obvious one, which already is there right now, is on the northern end in Holyoke on Old East Hampton Road. There is extensive parking there for people that are going across East Hampton Road, which is also a safety concern, but getting to Whiting Reservoir. And it also is directly accessible to the what used to be the Metacomet-Monadnock Trail is now the New England Trail. It is located right at the intersection of the trail. So you do have access to the trail towards the north end of the city. There might be access to the trail available in Appermont Highway. There is a large wetland area adjacent to the crossing location there in Appermont, which might get in the way of creating any sorts of a parking area. And it also is very close to where the water department has their storage tank, which also raises security concerns as well by encouraging public access to that property. So we did try to see if there were any other obvious locations where you could locate a parking area on trailhead so that people could use that. And nothing came to mind very quickly.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Councilor Bacon, is it primarily on weekends?
I'd say it's more so, but it's not limited.
Okay.
In that way. And I think the light might go in within the next year, and I think that will even make it more complicated.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to try to be proactive with it, because I mean, I think it's great that people are out using the trail and that we're trying to make it known. It's just, we have these unintended consequences we're coming up against. And so I really appreciate the input from everybody. I just wanted to try to be sure we looked at every possibility to try to make it friendly for people to park and hike here, you know, but without also having to hopefully deal with some sort of a terrible hazard that occurs. So I guess there's not a great answer on this one, but I guess if I had to choose from everything I've heard tonight, it would seem to me if we could move the signage, that might be a good first step.
Yanni, could that be done? Yanni, do you have the authority to do that?
We would have to talk with the water department. And I've also talked with my contact at Appalachian Mountain Club, who leads the volunteer crews. And she says in these situations, they're always happy to work with communities on whatever solutions they deem fit or see fit to. So if that's something we wanted to ask their volunteer group to work on as part of their trail work this summer, that's something that could be done. She says in other situations, they've even moved sections of the trail. I don't know if that would be applicable here, but making it cross at a slightly safer place might be feasible.
Well, I'm not certain about that because of the nature of that road, but if they could just move the signs so they were available to the hikers, but not removed, that seems like it would be a good first step to see that it might reduce that situation. So if that's something that could happen, I'd be happy to reach out to the Water Commission. I don't think they will have any problem with having the signs moved, or leave it in your hands. I'm happy either way, whichever folks think is the best way to proceed.
Yanni, we're leaving that in your hands right now.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilor McGivern.
I don't know if there is a real good answer.
Yeah, I know it's tough.
What's that?
It's tough.
Yeah, it's real tough. The signs also are somewhat of a warning to drivers that this is a trail. It's like when you're driving down the road and you see deer crossing, and you look at the sign, you say, I don't see any deer crossing, but you know that you may see a deer crossing at any moment. Not much you can do. But I think Councilor Bacon's point is there should be no parking. It's not an access point, it's a crossing. And Yanni, I didn't think you could move a trail like this. I don't think they've ever moved the Appalachian Trail, and I think some of the Indians might be a little bit upset if we move the signs for the trail, but we don't have to have an access point there. We don't have to have parking.
Right. The problem is people have just made it into parking.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the advent of COVID, it's unbelievable. Whether it's the weekend or weekday, you drive through the Mount Tom Reservation, you're not, you're unlikely to find a parking spot to get out and start walking around. Drive up to the Quabbin and you got to get a reservation to get in there. It's great. It's great for people that are using these, our backyard natural resources and passive activities. But, it's everybody's right. To get there, you have to drive, and to get there, you have to find a place to park. And unfortunately, we don't have the, for this trail, the parking availability just isn't there. But there's got to be some way to change that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be willing to find the order complied with if Yoni is comfortable coordinating with the club and the water department relative to moving the signage, because I do understand that it gives the drivers a warning that people may be crossing, but seriously, the people that are hiking and crossing 202 need to be extremely aware. I mean, that's like a NASCAR racetrack coming from Westfield to Holyoke out there. And so the hikers need to be very vigilant. So
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that if
Okay.
Yoni's comfortable with that.
And Captain Pratt, if it's at all possible that we maybe just have, come out and give a warning. Maybe I'm willing to give a warning to start with. If you got cars that are out there, just to kind of let them know it is no parking. We will have to enforce it. And if it's going to make it safer, I mean, I'm not trying to be too hard on people to start with, because I'm assuming they just assume they're all set. But if they find out that they can't, maybe most of them will not. We'll never know. And the signage, I think, makes sense too. Captain Pratt?
Yeah, I'll pass that on. That'll be easy for the area car to take random checks of that. Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. So
thank you.
Entertain a motion that the order has been complied with. We're going to ask Yoni to try to coordinate moving the signage, and we'll ask the police to kind of warn people that their parking there is prohibited. So, Councilor Bacon, that sounds
yes.
good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Everyone.
Second motion, the order is complied with said warnings.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Item 6, get back to the regular agenda. And Captain Pratt, thank you very much. I think you were all set. Yoni, you're still here on this one too, right? Okay. This one, item 6, to entertain a motion, take up item 6.
Take up item 6.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Order introduced by myself, ordered that the Public Safety Committee meet with the Director of the Board of Health and representatives from the Holyoke Health Center, including Darren Beek, as well as Jose Bao, as a representative from the school department, to discuss any ideas to improve the environment within the 4 lower neighborhoods where statistics indicate the highest levels and most severe cases of asthma has also negatively impacted school attendance. Ideas to be discussed include planting many more trees in each neighborhood, getting real-time air tests throughout the city by seeking volunteers who would use asthma inhalers embedded with GPS trackers to identify the most polluted areas. Let me thank, and I know at our last meeting, and I think we took this up about 6 weeks ago, we talked about using the RNIP program and also working with, and let me represent, I think, Colleen, you're involved with this, right? And Sarita, you're involved with this. And Mike, you're going to be involved with this. And Sean, you're going to be involved. Yanni, you're going to be involved. And Alicia, you're going to be involved. I think I've got everybody that's going to be involved with this. But the goal was, and correct me if I'm wrong, the last time we were going to use the RNIP program to try to encourage landlords to improve air quality in their buildings, to make some improvements that would improve the air quality and hopefully reduce the negative impact of intense asthma, and at least reduce the impact on families. And then also, we were going to try to tie in to be able to work within the apartments themselves in terms of helping them see, some of the things that they have in their apartment. If they change from that to this, they would be improving the air quality and reducing the impact of asthma as well. I think I've started covering that. So I know last time we were going to try to have people start to figure out how we could do it, how we could promote this, how we could get landlords to be if you will, the initial property owners to do this, and then start to see some positive results. So Mr. Moriarty, you have your hand up, so I'll recognize you.
I threw my hand up for this reason. My phone just died and I'm at 1% on this iPad I'm speaking to you on. So I may vanish at any given moment and I'm plugged in. I don't even understand the problem. Nonetheless, I can tell you this. We are aware.
Oh. He's gone. He wasn't kidding.
I think that was personal.
He's unplugged. He's gone.
Well, does anyone else have any information about where the RNIP program was going? Alicia?
He timed that perfectly.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow.
So I know that we had reached out to Colleen and Sarita and Deshawn to let them know about the program, and we've since had 1 or 2 inquiries for particular cases. So we haven't we haven't received any additional information yet, but we have had a couple of inquiries about, I think it was carpet removal related to a skin condition. So things are moving.
Okay. Now, how are we promoting this to landlords? I mean, the marketing of this would seem to be part of the difficulty.
So the marketing is somewhat difficult. However, the landlords in the city of Holyoke are a finite group. And Mike is tied into the Rental Association of Greater Springfield. We have marketing materials available on their website as well as the city's website. We market it with our partners like Revitalize and Sarita. All of the inspectors and the Board of Health and the building department are aware of it. So if they're working with landlords, they know that funding is available to make referrals. I don't think the participation concerns are related to marketing. I think the participation concerns are related to, and I feel like I keep saying this over and over these days, but it's to the federal compliance requirements. For instance, we had a property this week that needs a new roof, and we were working with a representative of the property owner. And when we told them that Davis-Bacon, the payment of federal prevailing wages is required for the project, they asked their contractors to redo the bids, and the bids doubled, and they pulled out of our financing program. For other landlords, the concerns are around long-term, and they're not really that long-term. They're only generally 5 years, but 5 years of rental limitation. So for 5 years, they have to agree to rent to low and moderate income residents. A lot of landlords don't want to be involved with anything that has to do with federal strings. So I wouldn't say it's a marketing concern. It's more along the lines of the federal compliance requirements. And we simply can't, those for the most part are not waivable. We waive where we can, we make adjustments where we can, but a lot of it's not waivable. So.
Okay. And just as I started to read the 150 pages today, I know one of the things that kind of related to this, and I was thinking this could be another avenue for some funding, but I'm going to assume that those same federal requirements are probably going to be attached to that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what Bob and I were actually talking about earlier. And that's the expectation, is that many of the federal strings are going to move forward with the ARPA money. Although the good news with the ARPA money from the webinar this afternoon was that it can be used for housing rehab, and this is a stretch, but for this conversation, but for homeless services, that sort of thing. So there could be an infusion of lots of funding into it, but those items are still not going to go anywhere. And frankly, I think some of these landlords, and Sean can attest to this, they don't want folks coming in sort of looking around, because we're also going to ask about lead paint. And if the inspectors go in to replace the carpet and see that there's no kitchen sink or there's, no running water, those are going to be concerns as well. So
I do know that the lead paint was part of that webinar today, that was one of the major improvements that they were looking at in terms of health environments. Sean, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would just say, to Alicia's point, I think that it is difficult to expect many landlords to sort of invite us in. Many of them have their reservations about that, and things like lead paint or asbestos removal can get, even if there's assistance involved, it can get complicated quickly. And sometimes the repair process or the remediation process can create tension between a landlord or a tenant, or so. I do think it'll take a little bit of time. There have been a few inquiries, but as far as the Board of Health is involved, we're just sort of waiting for the opportunity to go in and do what's necessary. But I do believe there would be some hesitation. We had discussed before maybe doing an audit of like an entire building. And I'm not sure if until there's a case study where that's successful, if other landlords are going to be the first person to sign up for that.
Okay. So we need a guinea pig, a nice guinea pig. so Colleen or Sarita, in terms of, let's go to the other avenue, getting into the apartments and working with the people that rent the apartments. Are there ways that we can do that might at least deal with individual apartments while not necessarily dealing with the entire building?
Right. So I would say, I just want to echo everything that I heard from Alicia and John. This is the same thing. I was having a conversation with a colleague today, and we just walked through all of those different reasons. And so in terms of this, it might be more, a different strategy would be to what kind of enforcement or legal liability could you bring down on the landlord? Could there be some carrot and stick method where, you know, it will offer you this, or we're going to throw the book at you somehow? I think that, you know, are there enforcement alternatives that could be included, as well as, here's some funding, we can help you with this. But I would agree that those are some of the same things that we hear in all of our work with landlords. Not all landlords are bad. I think Colleen will give us this story of, we just had a wonderful landlord who took a reasonable accommodation and did the whole, instead our program did just the bedroom, removing carpet, and then the landlord was able to do the whole buildings, the whole apartment. So I do think that there are those success stories. And I think that we are working with families, and families have their own reasons for not wanting people to come into the,
I remember you saying that.
and their own reasons for not wanting to go into the landlord. So I think this is something where we are, you know, we are going case by case and working with families and through. And really, that's kind of our goal, is that the more that we do it and it's successful with a family, that we would, by word of mouth, begin to build trust with families, that we're not there to report them for other
right,
you know, other things that are not anything to do with health and asthma. So I think it becomes a challenge, and slowly but surely we can be doing that work. And I think it takes bigger. These are not problems just for Holyoke. These are problems that other programs are facing across the state and across the country.
Okay.
I think too, also to echo what Sarita said, yes, the challenges with the landlords, of course, and we've had a few success stories, but there's usually more challenges than success stories. However, if we're unable to get permission to actually do the repairs or modifications in the home, remediation or the apartment, we do have the ability to give them supplies such as air purifiers, air conditioners, pillow and mattress protectors. And we have found that just the supplies alone, we've seen an improvement in the ability to control their asthma by almost 30%. So, so it does make a significant impact if we, you know, reach an obstacle.
So let me, and before I recognize Councilor Bacon, so let me just ask this. So how do we get, how do we promote that with the tenants so that they know that we can do these things, and how do we get that word out? I mean, and it made, obviously it made a difference when you're doing different mattress and you got this and that. I mean, if we can reduce the impact, and I know that it also impacts adults, but my first concern has always been the kids. And if we can reduce that impact, we give that kid a much better chance to have a good life. And, you know, be good in school, enjoy being outdoors, enjoy playing with their friends and all that kind of stuff. So how do we get to that point? I mean, I know, and I mean, South Holyoke neighborhood has an initiative, and once we get through this COVID thing, I know Mr. Case will be having some kind of family fun night. That might be an area, if I can get you to come to that we might be able to have, oh, well, yeah, come and take a look. Maybe you can help me. And then maybe the word will spread. Because I know you've got a, you know, nonprofit, and you're trying to do these things to help improve health and air quality and asthma. So, I mean, I would definitely like to invite you to those things once we get back where we can actually have meetings. So let me go to Council Bacon, and Yanni, I got you on the tree aspect today too. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm asking anybody to repeat themselves, I apologize, because I wasn't in attendance for your prior meeting where I know you have spoken on some of these matters. but I thought I had seen in one of the agendas some accompanying materials around education for the tenants relative to the activities within the apartment by the family members themselves and the effects that it may have on children who are asthmatics or in families with a history. I know that at one point in time, there was a lot of emphasis and attention on secondhand smoke in the homes. And it seems as from the general public point of view, that has diminished a lot. But I had the sense that it was perhaps part of this initiative. Because I think as much as we tend to focus on the outside, sometimes people forget, you know, everybody focuses on cigarettes, but then they don't think about the other things that are also putting carcinogens into the air in their homes. And so I just wanted to understand how that might be coming to bear. And I think the air purifiers and the air conditioners are a huge positive for that aspect of things.
So our program includes both education around what are asthma triggers. Many of the people that we work with use things like bleach and cleaners that are really harsh irritants and can exacerbate asthma. People love air fresheners, the scented candles, all of those can trigger asthma. So smoking, definitely any kind of smoking, any kind of, even, you know, how much we love having our outdoor fire pit when we don't have, when we can't see people except outside. Those kinds of things can really exacerbate asthma. So there, it is multi-trigger. It's not just one thing. So it can be something structural in the home that we could do that. So like Colleen's team can do an assessment and rip up the carpets, fix the ventilation, clean the vent ducts, get an air purifier. You know, we know gas stoves. Now we know there is a clear link between gas stoves and asthma exacerbation. So one of the things we want to do is get rid of gas stoves. I know how much people love gas stoves. If you have asthma, it's really not a good idea. So it's like all of these, there are so many different things that can be the trigger for an individual. And that's what our education is through the community health workers from Holyoke Medical that we worked with. I worked with the Prevention Wellness Trust Fund Healthy Holyoke program with Holyoke Health Center and Holyoke Medical Center and Holyoke Pediatrics. They have a lot of education that they are doing in the health centers to help people understand what are the triggers. And some of them are behavioral and some of them are structural and some of them are out there.
All right, well, I'm happy to hear that it's so multi-focused. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Yoni, you want to offer? I know you're working to have more trees planted, and I know that has some positive impact. How far are we moving on that?
So yeah, that's moving on a few fronts. I mean, again, I think we acknowledge these indoor triggers are probably the main cause of exacerbating asthma, but to the extent that expanding green spaces and creating more habitable outdoor areas for people to spend time is part of that as well. So on the urban forest equity plan, we've completed our series of public forums. We worked with Sarita at the Public Health Institute and Crystal Pollitt from Yale, who's working on the air quality monitor project, to sort of introduce that new next line of work that's going to be coming and really think about the intersection of outdoor air quality and urban forestry. So those recommendations will be part of the plan that's being drafted now by DV Resource Group, and that will have available in its final form by the end of June. On the Greening the Gateway Cities grant that we were awarded, this is the one for stump removal and improving tree pits. We've hired our contractor. We're going to go look at our selected sites tomorrow. I'm going out with the DPW superintendent. And that work should be done pretty quickly within a few weeks. And thereafter, the DCR Greening the Gateway Cities program will follow up this spring and plant brand new trees in those locations. And they're all located in, I think some of the pretty much the same areas we're talking about as having the highest asthma incidence in the lower 4 neighborhoods. And we just had a meeting. Sarita can talk more about this, but I'm supporting the coalition that's coming together to create an air quality monitor network across hopefully the whole Connecticut River Valley, but so far it's looking like Springfield, Chicopee, and Holyoke. They have funding from the AG's office and then additional funding from Earthwatch and research assistance from Crystal from Yale. And the goal is to hire a few resident advisors in each of these communities. They'll each get a stipend, and they'll, I guess, help do the citizen science work associated with these monitors that'll be set up in key locations around the city, mostly in municipal buildings, schools, and other city buildings, but maybe others. So I'm trying to help them figure out the best locations and help connect them with like the school department, Whitney Anderson, and other groups that might help. But Sarita, of course, can speak much more eloquently to the overall scope of that project.
Thank you, Yanni, and thank you for all your work. You do a good job. Sarita, you want to make any other thoughts on that?
This is just a really exciting project brought to us by the Attorney General's office to try to understand why there's so much asthma in this area. There are only 2 air monitors through the EPA, and one is in Chicopee and one is in Springfield, and yet we know that it's this whole area. So the idea of we're going to have a network of 55 monitors in Holyoke, Springfield, and Chicopee. And that will make it possible to understand what are the hot spots and really identify areas and sources of pollution. And then for the AG, that's their goal, is to understand where did this pollution come from, and is there any enforcement to be done around that. So it's, we have a lot of detail around that. We're really excited to be working with the city of Holyoke, with Yoni and Ryan from the Board of Health, as well as with folks from the city of Springfield and Green. So we have a great collaborative team, and we have resident advisors from the 3 communities to help us understand better both where to place these, and once we get the data, how to share that out.
Well, we appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate it. I've been working on this, trying to find solutions, and I think that's another one of those things that I had read about that made a lot of sense. You find out where the problems are, it gives you a better chance to address them. So I appreciate all that. If it's okay with the committee, I would like to continue to table this, continue to get feedback maybe every 6 weeks and see how we're doing. If there's anything that changes, that we can find a way to get more information out, or get one landlord or 2 landlords to make the correction and to make the improvements in the air quality. But I think we are gaining more information. We are trying to reach out and find that initial, hey, these are areas we've done it, we've made improvements, and look, the federal government's not coming down on your case, the state's not coming down on your case, the city's not coming down on your case. We're just trying to make your building better and your tenants healthier. But I appreciate all of your expertise and your commitment to making asthma reduce. I'm going to let Councilman McGivern have his say before we go to table. Councilman McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank our guests, our speakers. It's, learning about this, I think, is important, because educating not just the public, but educating us as city councilors, I think, is very helpful. I can't believe that every meeting we've had so far, I've learned something. And tonight, thanks to Councilor Bacon, I learned that gas stoves aren't good. And that took me by surprise. And I have to talk to my daughter, who has a little asthma problem. Well, I think she does have a gas stove. But again, I appreciate your efforts, and I know we're not micro or macro managing anything, but we're just trying to become informative so that our constituents know that there's a lot of work being done. And Yanni, let's keep those trees going. We want to grow them and grow them more. This is the city of trees, as it used to be called. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion that we table this again.
Motion to table?
Motion is table, second.
All in favor?
Mr. Chair, Mike Miardi did come back on. I just didn't want to insult him because he did get kind of cut off real short.
Mike, would you like to say anything else, or are you all said, or?
You know, I feel like I have a gap in the way the meeting went because it took me a little while to get back on. For what it's worth, would love to deploy ARNIT money on this. It's a very complex program. It's a very rules-driven program. But if a landlord comes forward, we will counsel them one-on-one and do everything possible to try to get them from point A to point B. So I'll just put that out there if it hasn't been heard already.
Okay.
And just one other thing about asthma and education that I can certainly volunteer on the part of One Holyoke. We are renting tabling space in Seatown all year long. We're doing this as part of some funding we have for COVID vaccination and mitigation information. But we could certainly be sharing some information to the communities that shop in South Holyoke and the flats at Key Foods now, using that tabling space as the years ahead. So if there's materials like that, and if that's an offer that's helpful some way.
Yeah, I think as Teresa and Colleen, I think, you know, that may be a connection to get you some tenants touching base with you and making it in their apartment, making their lives better. And I guarantee many of them have people with asthma that are living in those apartments. So yeah, Mike, if you can coordinate with Sarita and Colleen, that would be great.
Yeah, love talking to them every chance I get. Sounds great.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so a motion is made at the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. John, we got one more thing for you, and then, or maybe a couple of things. And then item 7 is introduced by Councilor Bacon.
Take up item 7.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Introduced by Councilor Bacon that the acting mayor and the city council president present a plan and target date for opening City Hall and resuming city council meetings at City Hall. I'm glad also to have Sean Gonzalez, who is trying to coordinate our efforts to make sure that whatever we do is going to be within health standards and that we are not putting anybody in jeopardy. So, and Sean, first of all, I want to thank him. He's done yeoman's work in one of the worst years to be a health director you could ever imagine. I don't know about 1918. I'm not that old, but I wasn't there at that one. But I just want to thank you publicly for what you've done, Sean. You've done a great job. You've put a team together that's done a great job, and he's trying to help me now coordinate our opening. So, Councilor Bacon, I know it's your order, so I'll let you start, and then I think I'll let Sean run from there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I did, Sean, see your email today before the meeting. And so I saw the target date of early June, which I was very happy about. And certainly as someone who's been working every day throughout the whole COVID situation, I'm not at all one to minimize safety concerns, except that I will point out as an optimistic person relative to this, that it is possible to be safe. And certainly with the statistics that we're seeing now, it is even more optimistic and reasonable to be optimistic. So I don't minimize the need to be safe. On the other hand, I think there's a point in time where we just need to know that we have learned enough to conduct ourselves safely and to, as many businesses have been and are doing, normalize our government functions for the people that we serve. And so I'm very appreciative of the efforts and the timeline. And I'll let you have the floor, but just thank you so far.
Thanks, Councilor Bacon, and thanks, Mayor Murphy, for the kind words. I appreciate it. So June 1st, just to give reference to the date, what we were really hoping to do is once the vaccine became readily available, give city employees every opportunity to get it and become fully vaccinated, meaning, you know, you have your first, you have your second dose, and your 14 days. Some people got the Janssen vaccine, which doesn't require a second dose, and maybe it was a little faster. But I think at this point, anybody who was interested in being vaccinated has had ample time. to do so, which at this point is the best protection against COVID. So that was, one of the main things in mind. And then at this point also just giving us time to do some adjustments and make sure that people feel comfortable in their offices. So I'll split this sort of into two sections. One about city council, we'll start with that, and then we can answer questions about city hall if we'd like to get there. But council, I think to start, at any time, council could meet in chambers, right? So the city hall has been closed to the public is the phrase that we've used, but city council, everyone there is a city employee. There's no reason that, there was no ban on council meetings in person. I just think that people were reticent to be there during the peak of COVID. And so what we are doing is carpet was replaced in council chambers. And so the room was already cleared for the carpet replacement. And we are borrowing from Chicopee, not ashamed to admit that, in their setup, the way they operate. So they have all of their council members in a one distribution. At this point in time, nobody's raised. I know in city council chambers, there's kind of a city council president is sort of elevated, but for now with COVID and the dividers, everyone would be on the same level. And the hope is that we can. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I was just ad-libbing.
We're just hoping to have everybody evenly distributed so that the visibility is maximized. And then what we're doing, again, borrowing from sort of Chicopee's success, is we have dividers, clear, impermeable layers. They're on little metal frames and they're retractable. And we would put those in between the desks to maximize protection between council members. And at this time, we're not really able to provide equitable access to the public to council chambers because of space. So even if all of the council were in there, I'm not sure realistically if there was a topic that merited a lot of public discussion that you could say, well, only the first 5 or only the first 7 people are allowed in. I don't realistically think that makes sense. So the hope is to also follow that same model that's worked in Chicopee, and they have a large screen. In this case, Holyoke Media has 2 60-inch screens on carts. And so what could happen is council would be in the chambers, and then the public would be displayed sort of in the same Zoom format on those 60-inch screens. And so they could see you in person in council chambers, addressing them directly. And then you could also see them on the Zoom screen. And so Holyoke Media is prepared to set that up and sort of troubleshoot that process. But we're grateful that our neighbors have sort of piloted this for us already, and it's worked well. So that's our hope for council chambers until, I would say, August, when the governor has suggested that they would remove capacity restrictions, and then that would no longer be a mandate for occupancy limitation or social distancing.
If I may, through the chair.
Sure.
So we would be well below the occupancy load with the council and chambers now for inside, right?
Yeah, so the requirement for indoor gatherings is essentially it's 10 per 1,000 square feet is the suggested occupancy limit in office spaces that don't have a direct occupancy limit attached to them. I don't think any of our individual departments in City Hall have an occupancy limit. So that's the suggested occupancy level. And there are exemptions for the necessary conduct of business, meaning, if you have an essential function that you have to fill, they have given health departments a little bit of discretion to say, okay, well, if it's 11 or if it's 12 per 1,000 square feet, that it's not, you're not breaking the rules, so to speak.
So just so I understand, are you saying that we could begin meeting now, or are you saying we need to wait till August until all the restrictions are lifted by the governor?
I'm saying the public
Oh, the public part.
The
Okay.
public coming into chambers would wait
Okay.
until August, but
Okay.
the only thing that we're waiting on now is setting things up and getting things squared away with the screens and Holyoke Media. But the physical ability to meet is there. Right now, it's just a logistics.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear that. And I'm sure the public will be happy to be able to go into City Hall soon too.
Yeah, so to that email, we've already gotten 10 responses, I think, as of 4:30 this afternoon to the survey that we put out. So a few questions have come up. I'm going to be talking to a couple more department heads tomorrow. We do intend to host a Q&A session. I'm hoping sometime next week or the week after, at least a week ahead of time, to give time to address people's concerns and make sure that we have time to make adjustments. And so I'm hoping that everybody will be as comfortable as is reasonably possible.
Sure.
I think most departments won't have more than a few people in them at once, realistically. And so the greeters, the guards at the front door will be able to manage that with ease, and we'll be able to keep people safe, but allow a flow in and out of the building.
If I can just add, we are
thank you
letting each department kind of know, and I'll get right to you, Councilman McGivern, I'm sorry. We're trying to make sure that each department, if Department A, their capacity to be safe is only 2 constituents at a time. Department B, it's a bigger area, they can take 3 or 4 people at a time. So we are trying to work all that out so that the person at the annex door or the person at the City Hall door will know, you're going to the city clerk's office, that they're only allowed to have 2 people at a time. There are already 2 people there. You wait here, and as soon as the person leaves, we're signing in and signing out as well. So we can have contract tracing if need be. So Sean's done a good job with that. So we're trying to take and he and I will be meeting with any employees that have any concerns to try to see if we can address those concerns and either provide an alternative or other things. And also in the council, those counselors that might not feel comfortable, the Zoom can work as well there. So we're trying to provide every option to be together as much as we can, but also to make sure people feel safe. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And don't worry, the chair can always take advantage of being the chair and speak first. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And I thank Councilor Bacon because I think we all want to get back into the chambers, and I fully recognize it's, in the beginning, COVID kept us out of the chambers. There are ways to get us in there. Well, there's ways to get us in there safely. Maybe a year ago it wasn't as safe as now until the vaccine came out, but there are ways to do it. But our biggest hurdle, besides COVID itself, was public access. And I did reach out to Sean this afternoon to talk to him and to, tell him some of my questions and concerns about how we could address them, not just with Sean, but with Holyoke Media too. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to go over that.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
I too work in a COVID environment that has many challenges. I work in Holyoke District Court, as most of you know. I walk in the door, not daily because we are hybrid, and we have limited access to the public. I think we're currently at 40%, and it's very well controlled by court officers, both employees and anybody coming into the building. I believe this is state law. Our temperature is taken. We have the COVID questions, we call them, and they take it serious. Have you been in contact with anybody with COVID? Has it been made known to you through contact tracing that you may have been in contact with someone with COVID? Do you have COVID? Which I can't believe they have to ask, but believe it or not, we've had people walk into the building with COVID, knowing they had it. And it's, we've learned a lot as a country. And I said to Sean today, and I'm glad Linda said this tonight, and I think we all agree, what you've done has been incredible. You're from the emergency committee, whatever it was, under Mayor Morse, to your efforts, and even more so your efforts as our Board of Health Director. Just thank you publicly, because you've been tremendous, and very helpful, and not just to city employees, but to all of the city. So here are some of my thoughts. If we can't get the public in with us, how do we make it a meeting for the public? Because it's not about us. This is about the public being able to have access to one of our meetings. It's about, if there's a public hearing, we have to have access. And I know the state laws under COVID allow for Zoom and allow for everything. But if I go into the chambers and we're, partially on Zoom and partially in the chambers, I'm now going to have to sit in the chambers. I'll feel safe myself, except for those of us in the back. We got our back towards that gallery, and I don't know if there's any protection there to people who are sitting behind us. But I'm going to have a mask on because we're going to be required to have a mask on. Yep. Is that correct, John? So we're all going to be speaking into a microphone with a mask on. The public is going to be on a screen just like this, and a cart that can be rolled around, or a couple carts. And I mean, I'm sorry, but I guess we'll have some visibility. We'll certainly be able to hear them when the time, if it's a public speak out or if it's a public hearing. But my question to Holyoke Media is, will they be able to see us on Zoom? Are we going to be on Zoom? Meaning, are we going to have our own laptops at our desk? And that question has not been answered. That's not for Sean, but that's the Holyoke Media and Mayor Murphy.
Sean, you want to jump in on that one?
My understanding is that Holyoke Media is able to replicate what is done in Chicopee, which is that they will see you on Zoom, and they will be able to interact with you. I do not believe you'll need to have a laptop in front of you. I believe that Holyoke Media will have a camera or cameras, and they will stream you into the Zoom stream. That's my understanding of that process. But
that's correct. I probably asked my question wrong, and note that the chambers in Chicopee City Hall are much larger than our chambers and easier to spread out. And I don't think it's worth spending the money to move upstairs into our auditorium, which is an option, because by August, September, we're not going to need to be up in the auditorium. But when I say on Zoom, what the cameras Holyoke Media will show with the Holyoke City Council is a large group of city councilors, the city clerk, the city solicitor, sitting in a U circle. It won't, we're not going to be like this, where we're individually able to know when someone speaks and when, what's going on. The president's, when we're in the chambers, the president needs to, see the interaction of the entire body itself. So when I say Zoom, if some of us are on Zoom, some of us are not on Zoom, the public's on Zoom, the video is not going to be the same. The audio is going to be fine. We'll be able to hear everything, and people will be able to hear us, but not everybody's going to see the same thing, is what the point I'm trying to make. Is Holyoke Media here to answer any questions tonight?
They're here, but I'm not sure they're here to answer that question, Councilman McGivern. I don't know. Is that Scott, by any chance? I am meeting with Scott on Friday, so I can ask that question. But I mean, as I understand it, we would, when you're speaking in the council, just like it is when we were on Channel 15, you would be the person that the camera would be covering.
Did you ever watch that?
We're all, even in the chamber, we're all still on Zoom. At least that's what I understand it.
I know, but have you ever watched that on Channel 15? Ever watched our committee meetings? The month of June, we're going to have probably 6, maybe 7 full city council meetings with the budget hearings and the 2 regularly scheduled meetings. Mm-hmm. Our committees are probably going to be, as usual, 2 to 3 nights to meet a week. So if we're talking committees too, we're looking at anywhere to an average of 4 nights a week being in the chambers and trying to coordinate Zoom hybrid and do the whole thing, and still not have public access for any of it other than Zoom. But that's not a deal breaker to me. That's a concern that we do it right. And I'm just asking those questions to see if we can make it better. Ventilation in the council chambers, Sean, there is no ventilation right now. How do you address that?
So we've secured, and most apartments have them in their office now, Carrier air purifiers. So they're a large gray stand-up unit on wheels, and they're individually rated for 600 square feet, and they have HEPA filtration inside of them. So that would be what we would be running inside of City Council chambers.
Okay. The standards right now are to exchange air, I believe, 4 to 5 times an hour. Does that do the same thing?
It does, yeah. It draws air in and filters it through a HEPA filter and then brings it out. And they have a low and a high setting. And one unit is for 600 square feet. I don't have the council chambers dimensions in front of me, but if we put 2 in there, I believe it would readily address the space in there.
And when we need the air conditioner, which was, I think, put in there in 1935, will these purifiers cool the air off?
I can't speak to the comfort level in chambers. I could say that we can get you in there and we can have a modicum of safety. I can't speak to.
I can say that I have one in the mayor's office, and I can tell you every time I'm near it, it's cool.
No, the one in the mayor's office is, I remember because it was there a long time ago. It does work for that one room, but the chamber one. This is one of those
purifier. Yeah. Because he just
so purifiers are important. I just wanted to make sure they were part of the plan. But the air conditioning needs to be upgraded, Mr. Mayor. But that's not for tonight.
I'll take care of that tomorrow, Joe.
Yeah, we can't open the windows. That's why I asked about ventilation.
Yep.
And obviously the warmer temperatures are coming, so we're going to have to correct them. So far we're going to be sitting in the heat, mask on, talking into a microphone, and maybe everybody can see us and we can see everybody on Zoom. Although we don't have to have laptops. The cameras will take care of that. And hopefully the audio will be good enough for everybody back and forth to be able to hear each other.
Yeah. And we did get reports on how Chicopee does it, and they seem to be pretty satisfied with it. So just same theory.
They're bigger chambers. One of the things that is still important, and that's quarantine. And in my job, I can be, the court takes, a lot of precautions, but one of the things we do as probation officers is we put GPS bracelets on people who are being released on GPS monitoring. And that's, no matter how you make it, we also do scram units, that is for alcohol testing at home on demand. Both processes are up close and personal. And I can find out for either a person who was coming from the House of Correction or later on that a person that I put one of these devices and, administered it, that they had COVID. Or I could be exposed to COVID for another reason. And if I, as an elected official, am exposed to COVID, I cannot come into the chamber, I believe, for up to 14 days. I think it might be less now, but it's up to 14 days. How does that help me if doing the right thing by not exposing other people to the possibility I contacted COVID and could transfer it, but I cannot get into the meeting?
Well, you would still be able to get into the meeting in Zoom if you needed to. I mean, each council will have their own. I mean, their own choice. I mean, if they come and they feel uncomfortable or if something else happens and they need to be at home or somewhere else to do the meeting, they have Zoom capacity. The entire public will have Zoom capacity. And if we're in council, we will have 2, I believe there are 6-foot monitors, Sean. So that
60-inch monitors, yeah.
60-inch monitors.
So 5 feet.
Yeah, so that on both sides of the chamber. So I mean, I think we're going to be able to see the public when they want to talk to us, just as probably better than we see them on our own computers right now, Councilman McGill.
I'd like to hear that, and I trust what you're saying. I know you worked hard on this, but the reason I asked this come to committee is that we can hash these concerns out so that we can all get back safely. To me, we gain nothing if we don't get the public in the building, because there's a couple of advantages of information exchange and having hard copies of things and being able to do things with the city solicitor and so forth and the city clerk when we're in the chambers. But if the public's not there, it's we're not doing our job. You know, it's if the public's there by Zoom, I really want to know, you know, visually what they're seeing and visually what we're seeing, and if that works. And it sounds like we're, you know, if we start June 1st, it sounds like this is for 2 months, the bulk of it being in June. And it's just, you know, questions I'd like to have answered. The back of the room, we're going to allow department heads into the building that are called before a committee or come into the city council meeting?
That would be council's choice. If you find that it's better for certain avenues and there is space in there to do so, like I said, we're still looking at the layout. That may be possible. Perhaps it's one at a time. Perhaps it's only a couple. But if there is sufficient space, I do believe it would be possible to have department heads in there in limited numbers.
One thing we did talk about, Sean, is not to have the full bleacher seating, if you will, that we were going to just put, and we were going to space and put actual chairs. And I think we were talking 6 on one side and 6 on the other with spacing, and everybody would be more than 6 feet apart. And then to have something in front of the microphone. So if someone's at a microphone, you know, they would not have be talking over someone else. And in fact, without having something blocking, just like we're going to have ourselves protected on the side, we would also be protected from the people on the microphone.
What about our backs though, Terry? And those that are in the horseshoe part, that your back faces where the public would usually sit?
Yeah.
How do we protect, you know, the city councilors that are like that?
If I may, Joe, I think the idea would be to have nobody's back would be
right
that way. There would be a narrow area in the front because all of the pews and everything would be out. So we'd have it arranged so there would be perhaps a slight curve or maybe a V for visibility, and then anybody who was in the chambers to address you, should that be necessary, would be closer to the door. And I don't believe there would be anybody who would be behind or close to your side or back.
Yeah, we are trying to make it so that everybody, even people coming in, would not be coming right to us.
I appreciate that. I'm just, if we had a floor plan, it might be easier, but 6 feet, and we're talking 20 people, right?
In the back?
Well, we're talking 13 city councilors,
okay,
a city clerk. You know, if we have any department heads or the mayor come in to speak, you know,
yep,
in this case, we don't have to worry about that. And the city solicitor. So, you know, that's 15 right there. I don't know if my math is good tonight, but, and then we put a few people that are coming to the meeting to speak.
So we are working on the best layout for visibility and safety now. Jim Crass, Mike McManus, and members of my department are working on that layout currently. If necessary, we could always put more of these clear dividers. We had hoped to set it up in such a way where it would not be necessary for any divider to be in front of anyone in order to reduce the possibility of glare or to muffle sound any more than it already will be by the masks. And so that's kind of another reason that we had the June 1st layout, is that we're going to try to flesh this out and do some fine tuning. I mean, admittedly, to your point, Councilor McGivern, I mean, there will be some, I think, bumps, and you know, in the same way when we switched to this Zoom format, there were a few technical difficulties before we got it right. So I can't promise that this will be flawless from the go, but we're hoping to offer as much safety and practicality at the same time.
The state still requires surfaces such as microphones, desktops, places that are, you know, encountered by anyone to be cleaned before someone else comes in. Is that correct? So how is that going to work?
So we would sanitize the microphone between use, or we could put up a screen in front of the microphone in which somebody is not speaking into it directly. We're working through this with the schools as well for their graduation and commencement procedures. We're looking at the best way to sanitize a microphone without saturating it. That's sort of a process that we're working on as well.
And I heard you earlier, Sean, and I hear, well, there aren't that many city councilors here, which kind of surprises me. But, you know, I think the city council should be full. But to me, you know, I think August, the first Tuesday meeting in September makes a lot of sense because it won't cost as much. It sounds like it'll be a much safer environment, but most important, we'll have public access.
Yeah, from my end, we're doing our best, you know, in the Board of Health to accommodate the wishes of the council on this one. So the best we can do is set it up in a manner that's safe and functional. If people are not comfortable coming in person at this point, I think we're all agreed that it would be optional. If people, you know, if the majority of councilors would prefer not to, we're just trying to make this available. But there, you know, obviously the safest way to conduct business at this point is remote. I do think we've made a lot of strides in the community and in the country as it pertains to meeting in small numbers safely. And we've been offering vaccines for 6 weeks now in the community through the city. So they have been available. And I think at this point it comes down to a choice by individuals whether or not they're comfortable with this setup. But the safest way is always going to be remotely. I mean, at base.
It's the safest way. We obviously cannot ask anyone, other city councilors, if they've been vaccinated. We obviously cannot ask anybody that comes into the building to see us if they've been vaccinated. You can only ask those questions about whether they've been recently exposed and have a temperature check. So I think safe, you know, for the public is the most important. I think safe for everybody involved, you know, is Zoom until we get a lot higher percentage of people vaccinated and this country opens up with the new normalcy. But that's my humble opinion, Mayor Murphy.
I hear you, Councilor McGivern. Councilor Toman?
Thank you, Chair Murphy. Joel's probably asked a few of the questions that I had concerns about, but I think in the bottom line, I want to thank Councilor Bacon for putting this order forward, and you, Mayor Murphy and Sean, for the work you're doing. I think it's important that we have that option, you know, to meet, you know, in person. But then if people are uncomfortable, they could still meet, you know, by Zoom. I think, you know, it's been what, over a year, 14 months. I think a lot of people are getting Zoomed out. I think people want to get that personal, you know, meeting together, dressing up, going down to City Hall, seeing hard copies of things. And I know that Sean and the mayor will work to make the best effort to try to keep everybody as safe as possible. But, you know, as Councilor McGivern stated, I think totally, I think the public, it's important to have the public there. And I know they can be there on Zoom and a screen, but, you know, they may not be able to fully be there until, you know, August or September, but I still think we have that opportunity to be there in person. And it's up to, like I said, half of us might want to be down there. Half of us may want to be home, but still doing Zoom, which is okay. And I think that's, you know, trying to make the meetings in City Hall and the annex available to the public in the safest possible manner, I think is our ultimate goal. So thank you so much. And thanks for the work you do.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for taking my order up so quickly. And certainly to Sean and Mayor Murphy for moving so quickly on it. And I think it's really important that we as city leaders take part in being role models for the citizens as we are coming out of the pandemic, as the statistics are greatly improving, as the vaccination rates are greatly increasing. And I think for those of us who have been working in it and are comfortable feeling that we can conduct ourselves safely in the society and at restaurants, as many of us are doing. And those of us who are comfortable with it should be in the chambers and should be conducting business as normal. I personally think we could possibly figure out a way for the public, if they wanted to come into the chambers, to be able to do that in a safe fashion. So I would support Councilor McGivern in that notion that it would be good to make it accessible to the public. However, I would note that for people who have difficulties and safety concerns coming downtown at night, the Zoom is perhaps making the council as accessible as we had been previously when we were meeting in person. So I guess, you could kind of argue it from many different perspectives, but I'm greatly appreciative of all the steps that have been taken, that we can meet in chambers in person. I will be there on the day that it is decided by the body, or however we're going to address the process to do that. I think we should be able to make the choice to be there as soon as we're informed that it's safe to be there and that the logistics are there. And I look forward to that happening as soon as possible for myself. And for others, I would certainly respect their choice. If for many reasons, they would choose to remain on the Zoom. So I wouldn't offer a judgment in that regard, but I would strongly encourage us to move toward the in-person meeting capability. And I'm very pleased that so much work had been done by this meeting tonight, Sean and Mayor Murphy. And so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We've been meeting for several weeks leading up to this to sort of develop a plan to get things going. And it took a little bit of time, but by the time I was aware of this, we had already gotten the ball rolling. So
that's great.
Councilor McGee?
Yeah, and thank you to everyone. And just to be clear, when I was in for my short tenure as the acting mayor, I was working with Sean to try and figure out how to get services back up and running. Because when people started to hear that there was going to be a change, not only from me and then to someone else, obviously now Councilor Murphy, people made it very clear they want services back. And that was the one thing I said we were going to fight for, is get services back to our residents. It not only because they're asking for it, but it is a mental health issue. They want to be able to say that they can go somewhere and do it. But the whole goal is to make sure we do it safely. And I think Councilor McGivern's pointed out clearly that it has to be safe. Councilor Murphy has taken over where I was at, making sure it's safe. And Sean has always been making sure it's safe. What Sean has said clearly was we're in the process of trying to set it up to make sure that the safety part is achieved. It's not there yet. We're going to get there, and we're trying to model it after someone else who has it, and that is Chicopee. So Sean and I have been in discussions as to how it's going to be set up and everything else. When it is, we're going to let everyone know and take a look at it and see it. I've kept everyone up to date as to how the chamber was being redone with the rugs and everything. Councilor Sullivan was very helpful in the sense of looking at the flooring to see if there was other ways we could do it to make it more aesthetically pleasing as well as comfortable for everyone. Ultimately, that took a little delay, and now it is being redone, or I think the rug is finally in and being set up again. So it's been a little process here or there, but the goal will always be to make sure everyone is safe. And as everyone else says, the public has access to it, which has been something that we've always been working on with the big screens in the city chamber, not only because of access for people who want to speak, but really for us to be more, up with the times. Instead of putting up an old board on a couple pieces of wood and projecting it up there, we wanted to have the video and everything else. So that was always in the works. It's now finally here. So it's everything finally coming together. But please understand that it is going to take time. We're letting Sean and everyone else set it up. once we see that final project, then we can show everyone and get that comfort level. So, you know, I don't want everyone to think that it's going to happen tomorrow. As Sean has told me, how we're still in the process. Things are ordered; they're coming. Once it's done, we'll keep everyone up to date to get this to where we really need it to be.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. Councilor McGarry?
Well, 5-7 years ago, I know he's on vacation this week, but our colleague, Councilor Leahy, had suggested to, it might have been Mayor Morse, but I forget exactly who it was in the chambers, that every city councilor should be have access to or be given a laptop, and we laughed at him. And I think it was a little bit with tongue in cheek, because obviously we didn't need a laptop to be in the chambers. But with the new normalcy coming, I think we're going to see more and more that hybrid's going to become the normal. And to do it correctly, and that's why I wish Holyoke Media was here, I think we are going to find out, whether it's at our own expense or whether we find a way to get laptops or some type of, some type of PC at everybody's desk. We're going to need that ability to do that in the chambers. So if I'm not sure if we're done this evening, but I would suggest that we table this and invite Holyoke Media in to see if we can fill in the pieces to the puzzle as far as Zoom and coverage and fair across the board access is an option, which means the public.
Well, it just, and I'm not quite sure I understand fair and equitable access. If everybody's got a chance to be on Zoom, everybody has the same potential access.
I disagree. I fully disagree that you're not going to see what you think you're going to see. And I want to hear that from Holyoke Media, what we're going to see. And for the person that's going to be on Zoom, whether it's a city councilor or someone from the public, what they're going to see.
Okay, I'm just not understanding I'm not understanding your point, but that's okay. I will get them in there, and that's fine. I'll table this, and that's fine. But I know Sean, and we're gonna work with making sure we're safe, and we're still going through the process to get city services back online back in service on June 1st, if at all possible. I know the gas and electric and the Holyoke Waterworks have both said the same thing. Their goal is June 1st. And the senior center and the library are June 7th. So, I mean, we're not going to do it if it's not safe. So just want to make sure that's clear. So,
and I'd say to invite in Scott to give us a demo. I mean, I think that'll help. Could we have some time before June 1st?
Yep. Yeah. I'm meeting with Scott on Friday. So, I mean, I can certainly ask him to update us on that and have him come to demonstrate what we can do. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. I just want to say that I look forward to it. And most of our local businesses are open and we are here to serve the public. And so I am very encouraged to hear the early June dates, particularly for our senior center. People are suffering serious mental health issues with everything being closed down, and we are here to serve the public. And so I am very encouraged that things are going to be opening up, and I say the sooner the better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McGarry.
Mr. Mayor, it's your call, and I fully support opening City Hall safely at whatever capacity limits are necessary with the help of Sean and state guidelines. My comments are about we're not doing the full thing with the city council chambers by not allowing the public in. And there's a big difference there. And I want to get the public in because I want to get back into city council chambers as much as everyone. But we don't gain anything if we don't let the public come into our meetings.
Okay, thank you. So I will entertain a motion. I think I'm hearing a motion to table.
Motion to table to invite in Scott to get a demo, and I think that'd be sufficient to see it.
Yeah, I'll try to see if we can get that beforehand. Maybe we'll just have that the only item on the agenda, if we know where we are at in the next week or so, and we know Sean's feeling comfortable as we set up, and we'll have it, and Sean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but once we get set up, I would invite you all to come and take a look and get comfortable with what you're seeing, to make sure that, I mean, I'm certainly not trying to dictate to anybody. I'm just trying to make sure whatever we do is as safe and as sound as possible.
Yeah, I would say to that point, Mayor Murphy, maybe we do a dry run. Maybe we have a few counselors come in. We can have a mock meeting. We can do the broadcast and make sure everything works correctly.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say, I'd like to volunteer to be in the chambers for the demo.
Okay.
And
I think
I'd love to be there.
What's that?
Want to know about?
I'd love to be there.
Okay. So maybe I can work that out with Hoyok Media and get 3 or 4 of you just to come in. Let's show you what, once we got it set up, and then you can all see what it's going to, and I'll invite all of you, but we'll get 3 or 4 to test it. And if others want to come, Sean, are you okay with that? Okay. Okay. So I'll be working on that, plus the 150 pages of the Recovery Act. So we're going to get there. My gray hair is getting...
You got 7 months now. What are you complaining about?
I only have 6 left. I have 25 weeks and 6 days and 1 hour.
Who's counting?
How many pages have you read already?
They haven't said bad things about me yet, Peter. I don't think. I
heard
haven't heard anybody say them. Met to my face.
That's because you haven't said no yet.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so we're going to table this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And thank you all for the good discussion. Item 8 is introduced by Councilor Bartley, and I want to thank Mr. Perrin and Don Welch for staying. And I know this is a item. We make a motion. We take up item 8.
Take up item 8.
Second.
All right. This is introduced by Councilor Bart. The Disabilities Commission for the City of Hoyoke consider creating signage that is age appropriate for a resident who require it. For example, a sign that reads "Slow Autistic Child" is not appropriate for a person in their mid-30s. Hoyoke can and should be a leader in this regard. It was referred to this committee and the disabilities, and I'm sorry that it's taken so long to get here, but as you see, we've had a pretty active meeting. So Don and Bob
Can you guys hear me?
Feedback on this.
Can hear you.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
You're done.
I don't know what he means by this because we don't create signage. So I have no clue what I was never contacted by anybody about what this order was supposed to mean.
It's, as I understand it, and he was trying to find, or there's a constituent that brought this to his concern and brought this concern to his attention. And I'm pretty sure it was the person that was an adult and kind of somehow was feeling like they were not being fully respected, I guess is the best way to describe it. So he's trying to figure out if there is some kind of signage standards that would make it age appropriate when you have signage that is trying to help a person with a disability. That's basically. Go ahead, Dan.
How about replacing youth or something with like artistic person or handicapped person? I mean, that's neutral.
Okay.
We got that email today.
Right. If I can jump in, filling in for Mike McManus tonight. My understanding is Councilor Bartley and Mike had been talking about this for a little bit before the order was actually filed.
Okay.
Which is how we've been able to actually comply with the order before you heard the order.
That's good.
So we have replaced the sign. The former, we were able to make this one in-house with our in-house sign shop. And what the sign says right now, and we can reword it if it isn't the most appropriate wording, but it indicates autistic person area is what the message on the sign is, versus what it used to be, which was slow autistic child. So we've tried to keep it, to calling attention to there being an autistic person in the area and really, calling drivers' attention to it without creating a judgment or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, that
sounds good to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too. I didn't get that. Peter, you might have got an email. I never got to that. But I mean, that sounds like that would solve the problem, and probably it's something that we need to consider in any of these circumstances, so that we make sure that we're not putting a person uncomfortable. But so that sign's already up, Bob?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mike's memo has a photograph of the sign in place.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor McGivern?
I just like to say thank you to Bob and Don for waiting.
Yeah.
You're on mute. You went on mute, Joe.
Sorry, my mouse jumped to the wrong button. I just like to say thank you to Bob and Don for being here. Councilor Welch, it's good to hear you again. And as always, we appreciate the work that both of you do. Bob, yellow signs are warning signs, not enforceable, but very important to, I think, to both drivers and important for what the message is about. So I just want to, I know the DPW does a great job of putting these signs up in the right location, and the wording sounds perfect, and can't thank you enough to, I hope the neighbor and the person that is looking for this feels the same way, because again, great job. I just, thank you. I see Councilor Tomlin's up, so I won't make the motion to the order's been complied with.
Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, just briefly, I think Jeffrey sent that out to us late this afternoon, about 3:30, with the picture, and I want to thank Don. He had, I probably didn't think he saw this, but exactly what the sign says, autistic person area. And thanks, Bob, for getting that out there in a quick manner. Appreciate it.
I got 23 emails from the city since 1:30 this afternoon from different department heads. I know some councilors who are retired get to read them before a meeting. Some of us have to wait till the next day.
All right, thank you, people. Good seeing you guys.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Bye, Don.
That's it. Motion, it's been complied with.
Thanks, Don.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the last item.
Good night, everybody.
10.
Good night.
Good night.
Make a motion to take up item 10.
Make a motion to take up item 10.
Thank you, Sean.
Second.
Okay, and it's a motion from McGee, Murphy, and Tallman, order that the city council approve a resolution in opposition to state incentives for biomass plants and the construction of one such plant in the East Springfield. I put it back on the agenda. We were going to adopt it, and then we decided that we didn't need to because it was going down. But now they've appealed, as I understand it, and the people that asked us to put the resolution asked if we would pass the resolution to make sure that as it goes through the appeal process, the state knows that Holyoke is against it as well.
And just for clarification, this is the one that has been updated, right, with all the Holyoke language?
Yep.
Because I remember seeing it, but then
yeah, I mean,
back and forth.
We updated it. I don't actually have it with me right now. Jeffrey probably has it in the jacket.
Yeah. I remember seeing it, but I just wanted to be clear because and there it is.
Yeah,
there we go. He's fast. He's fast.
He's like lightning.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading the Springfield one, and then we had to put in the Holyoke language, and we read the Amherst one, and we kind of did that. So my thing is, I have read this one. I'm not sure if everyone has, but I'm comfortable saying that motion is to receive and adopt.
I'll make a second to that. I'm comfortable also, Mr. Chair, especially because, or more so because of the location of the proposed plant and as we learned, the flow into our city is prevalent from that location, and so I certainly think there's the site specific, but for the whole purpose of clean quality air, so much we don't need more problems with the number of people that have asthma in the city as it is.
Absolutely. Okay, Councilor Tomlin, you were a co-sponsor. Anything else you want to say on this?
Yeah, no, I'm all set. I just remember calling at the last meeting. I think Councilor Bartley had just wanted to hear from, I think, the other side or something. Is that true that the last meeting we had this? I mean, I'm all for this. And I think it's important that we send a message, but I'm just saying on next Tuesday, he may have a problem with the language. I'm not sure though.
It's on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, I know. He was here earlier, but I think.
On the agenda tonight with his name.
Yep.
No. I'll note, just in fairness to Councilor Bartley, that he was struggling to get back into the meeting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, I just think we need to, I think it's back to being pretty active, and we need to make sure that if we're going to make our voices heard, and I think Councilor McGee and McGivern have both indicated, that the air quality and the pollution that would come from that would be impacting much of our sections of Holyoke that have the highest asthma rates. So just from that aspect, I think we have to just, I mean, we're probably not, I can't see us getting any benefit out of it other than we're going to get more pollution.
Right.
And all indicators are that that's true. And that's why it got denied. And now they're appealing on the basis that, they shouldn't get penalized for not doing something in 10 years or whatever it was. I think that's the limit. But if it's okay, we'll make a motion to adopt.
Second.
You recommend that the resolution be passed?
Yep. Second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Terry, Counselor?
Yes, Counselor Tom, I'm sorry.
Yeah, could you just make sure, or could Jeffrey try to make sure that he gets that out to everybody, all the counselors, just so we have that for next week?
The resolution.
One of those emails we got this afternoon.
Oh, was it one of them?
One of those 23 emails I got this afternoon.
Okay, maybe I missed that one.
Jeffrey,
Peter's only on 29 or 20. He's
22.
got one more.
Jeffrey, was it sent out?
Yeah, it was sent out yesterday afternoon. I'll make sure that it's sent out prior to the meeting, and I'll make sure it's kind of in the packet on
Okay, that'd be great.
when I post the agenda online.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you all. I appreciate your time and your efforts to get through this. I didn't think we were going to take that long, but maybe we got some good stuff that we had to take care of. And again, I appreciate your time. I would take a motion to adjourn.
6 months and how many hours you got left?
What's that?
6 months and how many hours?
5 months, 29 days, and now I'm down to a half hour.
How's Jean doing?
Not that I'm counting.
How's Jean doing?
Oh, she's doing relatively okay. We're going out to dinner Friday first.
Oh, amen. There you go. That's important.
Get a little time. Yep.
That's
I think she deserves it.
Oh yeah. No. But hey, we're hanging in there. Thank you, though.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Well,
Yeah, thanks for the work you do, Terry.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.
We're doing the best we can. That's all we can do. So
that's all we can do. Yeah.
And we're trying to make sure we have positive stuff. So, and let me just say one other thing before and I should have brought this up. I meant to bring it up, but we've been approached by Dennis Quaid, the actor.
Oh, really?
Who has a Viewpoint program that goes on public television. And they talked to me today, and they're considering doing something on Holyoke. There is a fee for it, but the cost of the program is $250,000. They asked the city to come up with 10%, which is 25. But supposedly, it would, they would talk about economic development opportunities in Holyoke, tourism opportunities in Holyoke, and I think they indicated that it goes out to something like 600 different channels around the country. I mean, it's potentially a marketing. I'm going to get more information, but awesome. It potentially could be a marketing piece that goes out and continue. And they also do, and I didn't realize this, they do 1 minute pieces on like Fox and CNN and all of those. And they do like little blurbs of the 1 minute. This is Holyoke. This is what you can have. I talked about the St. Patrick's Parade. I talked about the Children's Museum, Heritage Park, the merry-go-round, the Volleyball Hall of Fame, the river, the Mount Tom.
Reservoirs.
They said this sounds like something we would want. I talked about Holyoke diversity, both historically and currently, and they sounded like they were interested. So they did say that this is the estimated cost. I said, well, I don't know how much that would be, but then they started talking about the potential marketing. And if we picked up 1 or 2 businesses who found out that about us that might be worth the cost right there. But
you're right.
And maybe we get more tourism, and also just promoting, our homes that are pricing, our gas and electric, our water. Those were all things that were part of the discussion. Now, what they would actually and who they would interview, that would still be determined. They said they would probably come. They would come and actually produce it in Holyoke. So
Counselor, why don't you file an order before Friday to give the council an update on that, so that way everyone knows.
Okay.
So an order about being approached by Dennis Quaid and a marketing opportunity for the city.
Okay.
Then that way everyone can get on board.
Okay.
And if something does come about where they give us a price tag, at least we're
Yeah,
ready to
yes,
go.
like I said, I just talked to him this afternoon. So, I mean, that was just, and I was gonna bring that up, but I never got to it tonight. So until now.
I think it's great, and I think it's something that should be brought right before everybody, so that way we don't.
Okay. Yeah, I'll file it tomorrow.
Okay.
Not just a cheap gas electric rates, but electric, we produce our own power.
Yeah.
With hydro.
Hydro.
Yeah, I talked about the I talked about the dam. I talked about our gas and electric rates. I talked about our water and having our own water source and the rates. There were a lot of things, and that's what they're trying to promote. Community development.
We might even see the Chamber of Commerce and some of the business community hop in for the cost.
Right. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'll file it tomorrow. I'm glad I brought it up. Thank you for making that suggestion, Ted.
No problem.
That's good.
Right. So let's adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you for everything.
We'll see you. Good night.